His voice was distinct. Humphrey Bogart's voice was one of the first things people noticed about him. It was unlike anyone else's, a gravelly, husky tone that almost sounded like he had just woken up, with a bit of a rasp, as if every word had been carefully crafted from deep in his chest. It was the kind of voice you couldn't forget once you heard it. Even today, it's one of the first things people think about when they remember him. And for good reason. His voice was as much a part of his identity as his tough guy image. The gravelly quality of his voice fit perfectly with the characters he played. He wasn't the polished, handsome leading man like some of his peers. Instead, he embodied a more rugged, real version of masculinity. His voice matched that persona. It was raw, a little rough around the edges, and had that tough guy feel to it, like a man who had lived through some things and wasn't about to pretend he hadn't. It made him the perfect fit for the noir genre, those dark, mysterious films where the hero wasn't always a good guy but was still someone you rooted for, even with his flaws. In films like The Maltese Falcon or The Big Sleep, Bogart's voice helped bring his characters to life. His words always felt weighed down by experience, by the things he had seen or had to do to survive. But his voice wasn't just tough. It had layers to it that made it interesting. Beneath that rough exterior, you could hear a subtle vulnerability. Sometimes, when he spoke softly or gave a little pause, you could sense that his characters had more depth than they let on. There was an honesty in his tone that made you feel like he wasn't just playing a role. He was living the part. That blend of toughness and vulnerability made him unique. He could deliver a line like, "Here's looking at you, kid in Casablanca."
No. Here's looking at you, kid.
And even though it was simple, his voice made it feel powerful and sincere, full of emotion without being overly dramatic. It wasn't about being loud or forceful. It was about the way he used his voice to convey feeling, even in the smallest moments. When Bogart delivered his lines, particularly in the world of film noir, his voice had this commanding presence. It wasn't about how loud he spoke, but how you hung on every word. His voice had the power to carry an entire scene, to bring tension and intensity to a conversation, especially in those moments where he was up against the odds, trying to figure out what came next. In The Big Sleep, for example, he could stand in a smoky room, barely speak above a whisper, and still own the scene. You knew he was in control, even when things were messy or uncertain. His voice wasn't just part of the dialogue, it was a tool that helped build the atmosphere, making the film feel like it was alive, like you were right there with him, trying to piece together the puzzle. What was also special about his voice was that it wasn't perfect, and that made it real. His voice didn't sound rehearsed or polished. It sounded like a guy who had been through stuff, who wasn't afraid to let his guard down just enough for you to see there was more to him than the hard exterior. That made him more relatable. It was as if his voice was a window into his character's soul, a tough guy with cracks and flaws just trying to make his way through the world. In a way, Bogart's voice was a big part of why he became the man he did in film. It wasn't just how he looked or the way he carried himself, it was how he spoke. He could make a simple sentence feel like it was charged with meaning. It gave his characters a life beyond the script, making them feel real in a way few actors could manage. His voice wasn't just memorable, it was magnetic, adding complexity and depth to every role he took on. He was a tough guy. Bogart's tough guy image was one of the things that made him so appealing to women. He wasn't the sort of polished, picture-perfect hero you often saw in Hollywood. Instead, he had this raw, gritty, and unapologetically masculine vibe that made him stand out. His rugged appearance, his sharp features, the way he carried himself, wasn't about being flawless. It was about being real. Someone you could believe had been through the ups and downs of life and come out the other side even tougher for it. His physicality was never about big muscles or a traditional leading man look. He wasn't the tallest or the most classically handsome guy, but he had an intensity to him, a presence that demanded attention without needing to shout about it. In fact, it was the quiet confidence that he exuded that made him so compelling. In films like Casablanca and The Maltese Falcon, you could feel the weight of his character, even before he said a word. There was this sense that his characters had a history, a past that wasn't always pretty but made them stronger. Bogart's body language added to that image. He didn't need to flex his muscles or stand tall and proud in every scene. His strength was in his stillness, his ability to be tough without being flashy about it. It was the way he held his ground, the way he looked at someone with that piercing stare. You could tell he didn't back down no matter how bad the situation got. What really set Bogart apart, though, was how he made that tough exterior work in balance with a more sensitive, even vulnerable side. He wasn't just the hard-boiled detective or the cynical private eye. Underneath the tough guy persona, there was a complexity to his characters. He wasn't afraid to show a softer side, especially in his relationships with women. Take Casablanca, for example. He played Rick Blaine, a man who had been hardened by life's disappointments. But when it came to Ilsa, there was a tenderness, a real emotion that came through, even in the most stoic of moments. That combination of tough and tender was part of what made him such a captivating figure. Men could admire his strength, but they could also relate to the emotional depth he brought to his characters. This blend of toughness and vulnerability made him feel more human. He wasn't a perfect hero. He was a man who had been through the trenches, literally and metaphorically, and who carried his scars with him. But in doing so, he became even more appealing. Women loved him not just for his strength, but because he felt real. His imperfections, both physical and emotional, made him someone they could look up to and even relate to. He was tough, but he didn't hide his emotions, and that made him even more powerful in a way that no mere superhero could match. In every role, Bogart showed that strength didn't just come from muscles. It came from the ability to face the world with a sense of purpose, no matter what it threw at you. He was always composed. His ability to stay calm under pressure was one of the things that made him so appealing to women. There was something undeniably attractive about his composed demeanor, especially in high-stakes situations. No matter what was happening around him, whether he was in a dangerous situation, dealing with betrayal, or caught in a moment of intense emotional turmoil, Bogart's characters always managed to keep their cool. That ability to remain unshaken, to stay steady and thoughtful, gave off an aura of strength and reliability that women couldn't help but be drawn to. His coolness wasn't about being distant or emotionless. In fact, it was the opposite. Bogart's calm was a result of his ability to navigate complicated emotions without losing control. Whether he was playing the hard-boiled detective in The Maltese Falcon or the jaded nightclub owner in Casablanca, his characters were often put in situations where their composure was tested. But instead of reacting impulsively, Bogart's characters took a moment to think, to assess, and then acted with purpose. This was a quality that was highly attractive to women because it suggested emotional maturity. In a world where emotions often run high, his characters were able to stay grounded and think things through, and that steadiness in the face of uncertainty made him all the more alluring. There was also something deeply compelling about how his calmness created a sense of security. In the chaos of life, the idea of being with someone who could weather any storm without getting rattled was incredibly comforting. It wasn't about showing off or being flashy. Instead, his quiet confidence, his ability to face danger or heartbreak without crumbling, created a sense of trust. Women admired this strength, this calm assurance that no matter what came their way, he could handle it. In Casablanca, for instance, Rick Blaine is a man who's seen it all: love, loss, betrayal. Yet he keeps his composure throughout, even when his emotions are at war with each other. It's that inner strength that makes him so magnetic to Ilsa, and by extension, to women in the audience. He didn't need to shout or make grand gestures to show his power. It was clear in every choice he made, every line he delivered, and every action he took. What made this cool, steady nature even more appealing was how it complemented the more vulnerable side of his characters. Bogart wasn't just tough. He was a man of depth, and his calmness allowed those layers to come through. Underneath the tough exterior, there was often a man who had been hurt, who was struggling with his own demons. But he didn't wear his pain on his sleeve. Instead, he handled it with quiet strength, allowing women to see the complexity of his character without over-explaining it. This made him even more attractive. Women saw him as someone who had been through difficult things, but wasn't afraid to keep going. Someone who could love deeply despite the pain. Someone who could carry his burdens without letting them destroy him. It made him feel real and relatable, someone who, even in the darkest of moments, was still a man worth rooting for. And of course, there was something undeniably charming about the way he navigated relationships with women. In films like To Have and Have Not, his chemistry with Lauren Bacall was electric, not because he was overly romantic or dramatic, but because he was grounded and present. His coolness allowed for an emotional depth that women found irresistible. There was an unspoken understanding between them. He didn't need to impress her with grand gestures or sweeping declarations of love. Instead, he simply let his presence speak for itself. His quiet intensity, his ability to stay focused and calm, allowed for a genuine connection. Women loved him not just because of how he looked or how he acted, but because he knew how to be with someone without overwhelming them, allowing the relationship to unfold naturally. Bogart's calmness in the face of chaos was magnetic because it reflected a sense of inner peace and self-assurance. It wasn't just about being cool or aloof. It was about being emotionally steady and capable, and that was something many women found deeply attractive. It was a rare quality, especially in a time when many of the leading men of Hollywood were portrayed as overly heroic or perfect. Bogart's characters, on the other hand, were real. They didn't have all the answers, but they knew how to stay true to themselves, even when everything around them was falling apart. He was mysterious. Bogart's sense of mystery was one of the things that made him so irresistible to women. There was always something about him that seemed just out of reach, a certain enigma that kept you wanting to know more. It wasn't that he was intentionally secretive, but the way he carried himself left you with the feeling that he had layers you hadn't yet uncovered. His characters, especially in noir films, often had a troubled past or hidden depths that weren't immediately clear, which only made them more intriguing. This sense of mystery gave him an allure that other actors didn't have, making him feel like someone you could spend a lifetime trying to understand. What made this mystery so compelling was how it paired with his strong sense of self. Bogart never seemed to be searching for validation from others. He didn't try to be something he wasn't. Instead, he was comfortable in his own skin, and that self-assuredness made him all the more fascinating. Women could sense that there was more to him than what met the eye, and the more you watched him on screen, the more you realized that this was a man who carried his secrets with a kind of grace. His cool demeanor made you wonder what lay beneath the surface, what experiences had shaped him into the person he was, and in a way, that mystery was part of his charm. The unknown aspects of his character made him feel like someone you'd want to get close to, someone whose story you wanted to unravel. This sense of mystery wasn't about being aloof or distant. It was about having depth. When Bogart's characters did open up, it was often in moments of vulnerability, where the tough exterior cracked just enough for you to see the complexity underneath. In Casablanca, for example, Rick Blaine is a man who's been hurt and betrayed, and while he may come across as cynical or jaded, there's a tenderness in his actions that hints at his past. This mix of toughness and vulnerability was part of what made him so magnetic. It's easy to fall for someone who's an open book, but the allure of Bogart's characters lay in the fact that they kept part of themselves hidden. Women were drawn to that because it felt like there was always something more to discover, always another layer to peel back. The combination of mystery and vulnerability also made Bogart's on-screen relationships deeply compelling. He wasn't the type to wear his heart on his sleeve or to overshare. Instead, his love interests often had to work a little harder to figure him out. But that chase, that sense of unraveling the mystery, made the payoff all the more satisfying. Take his chemistry with Lauren Bacall in To Have and Have Not. Their relationship was full of playful back and forth, but there was always this sense that they were both holding something back, keeping a little bit of themselves hidden. It made their connection feel real and unpredictable, which only added to its intensity. Women loved that about him. He wasn't easy to figure out, and in a way, that made him more attractive. There was always something new to discover, something that kept you on your toes. What's also fascinating is how Bogart used that sense of mystery to create an emotional pull. He didn't have to speak volumes to make an impression. His silences, his pauses, were just as loaded with meaning as the words he spoke. This created an atmosphere of tension, where even the smallest gestures could carry a lot of weight. That mysterious aura wasn't just about looking distant. It was about being purposeful with every move, every word, and every look. Women loved that there was this sense that he was always in control, that he had an emotional depth, that he was only willing to share in select moments. The mystery of Bogart wasn't just a surface-level trait, it was a key part of his allure. It made him more than just a handsome face or a strong leading man. It made him someone who felt like a puzzle, someone you could spend hours trying to understand. And the beauty of it was, just when you thought you had figured him out, he'd surprise you. There was always something new, always a different layer to explore. That sense of the unknown, mixed with his quiet confidence, made him incredibly captivating to women. Bogart was the kind of man who left you wondering what was going on beneath the surface, and that mystery was exactly what made him so irresistible. His wit and humor combo. Humphrey Bogart's wit and sharp sense of humor also made him attractive to women. He wasn't the type to crack jokes every few seconds or to rely on slapstick humor. Instead, his humor was subtle, often delivered with a dry, almost sardonic tone that made you think before you laughed. There was a certain cleverness to the way he approached humor, whether it was in a quick one-liner or a witty remark that cut to the heart of a situation. It wasn't just about making people laugh. It was about making them think, and that intelligence behind his humor was incredibly appealing. His humor wasn't just intellectual, though. It was also very much about timing and delivery. Bogart knew exactly when to drop a line and how to deliver it in a way that left an impact. His dry, matter-of-fact style made him feel grounded, someone who didn't need to try too hard to make an impression. Women loved that about him. His humor wasn't forced or flashy. It was natural, like it came effortlessly. It was the kind of humor that made you feel like you were in on a private joke with him, that special connection that only the two of you shared. That made him more endearing, more approachable, and ultimately, more attractive. One of the most captivating aspects of Bogart's wit was how it played off his character's tough exteriors. In the world of noir films, where the stakes were high and the mood was often dark, Bogart's humor provided a refreshing contrast. His characters might be cynical or battle-worn, but they never took themselves too seriously. In The Big Sleep, for instance, his portrayal of Philip Marlowe was full of sharp observations and offhand comments that brought levity to even the most intense moments. It wasn't that he was trying to be the comic relief. It was that he was grounded enough to find humor in the chaos around him. That kind of balance between toughness and humor was magnetic. Women were drawn to it because it showed that he was not just a one-dimensional character. He had layers, and those layers included an ability to laugh at the absurdity of life, even in the most difficult of circumstances. Humor also played a big role in his on-screen relationships. His witty banter with women, like his iconic exchanges with Lauren Bacall in To Have and Have Not, made their chemistry electric. It wasn't just the romantic tension, it was the playfulness, the way they teased and challenged each other. Bogart's ability to keep things light and funny, even when there were serious matters at hand, gave his relationships a sense of ease and natural charm. Women saw him as someone who wasn't afraid to be playful, someone who could laugh and have fun, even when things got complicated. It was that blend of humor and intimacy that made his characters so irresistible to women. He didn't just woo with grand gestures. He won hearts with his sharp wit and effortless charm. What was also attractive about his sense of humor was how it reflected his intelligence. The fact that Bogart didn't need to rely on slapstick comedy or overly dramatic moments to get a laugh showed a level of self-assurance. He knew that the best humor didn't always need to be loud, it just needed to be clever, precise, and well-timed. Women appreciated that kind of subtlety. It was the kind of humor that didn't try too hard, that didn't demand attention. It was just naturally cool, the kind of thing you'd find yourself smiling at even if you weren't quite sure why. In short, it was Bogart's ability to mix wit with a sense of vulnerability that made him so attractive to women. His humor wasn't just about making others laugh, it was about creating a connection, about sharing a moment of understanding or recognition. Whether he was delivering a dry remark or using humor to ease a tense moment, His wit was a huge part of what made him so compelling. Women were drawn to his humor because it showed a man who was sharp, confident, and comfortable enough with himself to laugh at the world around him. It made him feel real, approachable, and most importantly, undeniably charming.
When Helen Mirren first started her career, one could tell that she may have potential to be a star, an icon in Hollywood.
Please welcome to the stage Dame Helen Mirren.
But as soon as she plunged in, Helen silenced all doubters, not just to her talent, but her amazing range and flexibility when it comes to the roles she took on. Some of them proud and authoritative, and others just plain shocking. Beatty in Hussy. No doubt, Helen Mirren has incredible versatility. At the start of her career, her portrayal of Beatty in the 1980 film Hussy stands as a fascinating testament to her acting prowess. After earlier notable performances in the 1976 film adaptation of Hamlet and the controversial Caligula in 1979, Mirren took on a character that would further solidify her status as a captivating screen presence. Set against the backdrop of a high-class London cabaret, Mirren's character, Beatty, makes a living as a prostitute, a profession that adds layers of complexity to her role. Her on-screen chemistry with John Shea, who plays Emery, her technician boyfriend, creates an intriguing dynamic. The tension that arises due to Beatty's profession adds depth to the narrative, giving viewers a glimpse into the complexities of their relationship. While Hussy might not be hailed as a cinematic masterpiece, it's Mirren's performance that elevates it beyond its shortcomings. Her portrayal of Beatty is nothing short of captivating, and she breathes life into the character with a smoldering intensity. The enigmatic allure she exudes not only draws in the characters within the film, but also ensnares the audience in its magnetic pull. Critics and fans alike were entranced by Mirren's portrayal in Hussy. Her ability to convey a wide range of emotions from vulnerability to strength was lauded by many. Critics also recognized that her presence transcended the limitations of the film's plot, making it a memorable experience. Mirren's future Oscar-winning performances were foreshadowed in this role, as her talent shone brilliantly even in a film that might have otherwise gone unnoticed. In Hussy, Mirren's Beatty is a character who defies expectations and challenges stereotypes. Her performance tells of her ability to transform even the most unconventional roles into memorable cinematic moments. Beatty's smoldering look and Mirren's remarkable acting skill create a character that leaves an indelible mark on the audience's memory. Now, admittedly, Hussy, as a movie, was sort of a hit and miss, but many of the earlier viewers believe that Helen Mirren's portrayal of Beatty is undoubtedly one of the film's redeeming qualities. She was loved for her ability to immerse herself in the character and convey its complexities while also being creative and improvising where necessary. Beatty's presence in the film brought to life by Mirren adds depth and intrigue, making Hussy a noteworthy entry in Helen Mirren's impressive filmography. This role was just one of many in her career that showcased her ability to surprise and captivate audiences, foreshadowing the many accolades that would later come her way. Tanya Kerbook in 2010. 2010 was the sequel to Stanley Kubrick's iconic 2001, A Space Odyssey, and is often regarded as a cinematic enigma. The film is so profound that many find a hard time believing the film exists. Released nearly 2 decades after the original masterpiece, where 2010 continues the epic journey into space, picking up the story 9 years after the mysterious failure of the Discovery 1 mission. In this ambitious follow-up, a band of explorers embarks on a mission to Jupiter, aiming to unlock the secrets of the cosmos. A huge contributing factor to the mesmerizing effect of 2010 is the cast, and although it included major talents like Roy Scheider and John Lithgow, it's Helen Mirren who shines brightly in her role as Captain Tanya Kerbook. Mirren's portrayal of this Russian character adds a layer of depth and intrigue to the film. As the commander of the Leonov, Russia's spacecraft tasked with investigating the mysterious failure of Discovery 1, Mirren's character holds a tremendous responsibility. Not only must she navigate the complexities of space exploration, but she also finds herself at the center of enormous political tension back on Earth. Mirren's performance as Captain Kerbook is nothing short of steely determination. She embodies the role with an authoritative presence that resonates throughout the film. Her convincing Russian accent lends authenticity to the character, immersing viewers in the tension-filled world of space exploration and international politics. Critics and audiences alike were captivated by Helen Mirren's portrayal in 2010. Her ability to convey the weight of leadership, the intricacies of command, and the challenges of diplomacy in the vastness of space was met with acclaim. In a film filled with scientific marvels and existential questions, Mirren's performance was a welcome surprise of just how versatile and talented she is. Mrs. Tingle in Teaching Mrs. Tingle. Helen Mirren's unexpected portrayal of Mrs. Tingle in the 1999 dark comedy Teaching Mrs. Tingle is true evidence of her remarkable range as an actress. This role is arguably the most surprising entry on her extensive list of performances. In the same year that earned her an Emmy Award for her portrayal of Ayn Rand in The Passion of Ayn Rand, Mirren took on the role of the vindictive history teacher at the center of this darkly comedic tale. In Teaching Mrs. Tingle, Mirren's character, Mrs. Tingle, becomes the nemesis of Lee Ann Watson, brilliantly played by Katie Holmes alongside Luke Cherner and Jolynn Jordan. Mirren's presence in this film is a departure from her usual roles, and she revealed feeling thrilled when Williamson thought of her for the part. Mrs. Tingle is undeniably the highlight of the film, with Helen Mirren delivering a performance that strikes the perfect balance between exaggerated dark comedy and the nuanced manipulation of a seasoned academic. Her portrayal of this formidable character is both wickedly funny and chillingly convincing. Mirren's ability to infuse depth into Mrs. Tingle's character makes her a standout in a genre not typically associated with her acting repertoire. Critics and audiences were intrigued by Mirren's unexpected turn in Teaching Mrs. Tingle. Her ability to embody the role of a strict and vengeful teacher while adding layers of complexity to the character earned her praise. The film itself may have been a dark teen flick, but Mirren's performance elevated it to a new level, making it a memorable and unique entry in her list of performances. In a year that saw her shine in diverse roles, she added an unexpected twist to her filmography with this character. Mirren's ability to tackle the challenging aspects of Mrs. Tingle's persona, from dark humor to academic manipulation, showcases her immense talent and surprising flexibility. Dominique in Raising Helen. In the world of dramedies, there's one film that showcases both heart and humor, and that's Raising Helen, directed by the legendary Gary Marshall. At its heart, the film revolves around Kate Hudson's character, Helen, who unexpectedly finds herself faced with the daunting task of raising her sister's 3 young children after a tragic loss. But what adds an unexpected twist to this tale is Helen Mirren's unforgettable portrayal of Dominique, Helen's no-nonsense boss and the formidable head of a renowned New York modeling agency, bearing her name as its illustrious namesake. Mirren's moments in the film may be fleeting, but they leave an indelible impression. As Dominique, she channels the essence of high-powered fashionistas, reminiscent of the Anna Wintours of the world. Her character exudes authority and sophistication, creating a fascinating contrast to the challenges that Helen faces in her newfound role as a guardian. Much like her commanding presence as Tanya Kerbook in 2010, Mirren once again makes a significant impact, even in a film that was somewhat less favored in Gary Marshall's otherwise illustrious filmography. Her performance adds a layer of complexity to the narrative, offering a glimpse into the glamorous and cutthroat world of high fashion, which serves as a backdrop to Helen's journey of unexpected parenthood. In Raising Helen, Mirren's Dominique becomes a symbol of the larger-than-life personalities that populate the fashion industry. Her character's elegance and no-nonsense demeanor are the perfect foil to the film's more emotional and familial moments. While Raising Helen may not have achieved the same level of acclaim as some of Gary Marshall's other works, it's Mirren's presence that elevates it and makes it a noteworthy addition to her own impressive role collage. In the film, her character adds a touch of glamour and sophistication to its narrative, and her commanding presence is a stark contrast to the challenges faced by the main character. Mirren's performance is a standout in a film that may have had its share of critics, but benefits greatly from her presence, making it a unique and memorable entry in her career. Queen Elizabeth in The Queen. Perhaps one of the greatest performances by Helen Mirren is her captivating portrayal of Queen Elizabeth in the film The Queen. This role no doubt stands as a testament to Mirren's extraordinary talent, earning her both critical acclaim and an Academy Award. In The Queen, directed by Stephen Frears and released in 2006, the narrative unfolds against the backdrop of a pivotal moment in British history. The film centers on the aftermath of Princess Diana's tragic death in 1997, a moment that shook the world and sent ripples through the British monarchy. Amidst this emotional maelstrom, Helen Mirren steps into the regal shoes of Queen Elizabeth II, and it is nothing short of a cinematic triumph. Mirren's embodiment of Queen Elizabeth II is nothing short of mesmerizing. From her poised demeanor to her impeccable delivery of the Queen's nuanced emotions, Mirren brings this iconic monarch to life in a way that is both authentic and captivating. She captures the essence of a woman who has spent her entire life in the public eye, a figurehead of stoicism and duty, but who also grapples with her personal feelings and the shifting tides of public opinion. One of the film's most compelling aspects is the exploration of Queen Elizabeth II's response to Princess Diana's death. Mirren masterfully conveys the Queen's initial reluctance to address the public's outpouring of grief and her eventual realization of the need for a more compassionate response. The transformation is a testament to Mirren's ability to portray a character's growth and evolution on screen. Critics and audiences were unanimous in their praise for Helen Mirren's portrayal of Queen Elizabeth II. Her performance transcends mere impersonation. It's a deeply empathetic and nuanced depiction of a complex historical figure. Mirren's ability to humanize the Queen while maintaining her regal stature is a testament to her acting prowess. In the end, the role not only earned her an Academy Award for Best Actress, but also solidified her status as one of the most revered actresses of her generation. Her portrayal of Queen Elizabeth II is a captivating blend of artistry and authenticity, making it one of the standout moments in her illustrious career. Victoria Winslow in Red. In the midst of this high-octane action, Helen Mirren steps into the shoes of Victoria Winslow, Frank's former wet-work agent, and a character that showcases her versatility in a way few could have predicted. Mirren's portrayal of Victoria Winslow is nothing short of fantastic. With a backdrop of gunfire and espionage, she brings a level of sophistication and wit that adds depth to the ensemble. Her ability to seamlessly transition from roles in historical dramas to high-stakes action flicks is a testament to her extraordinary range as an actress. In fact, Helen Mirren's role in Red was so well received that she eagerly campaigned to reprise it 7 years later in Red 2. Her return to the franchise was met with enthusiasm from fans who couldn't get enough of her in the high-octane world of retired CIA operatives. The success of Red even prompted discussions about a third installment in the series back in 2013. The fact that such discussions were even on the table is a testament to the enduring appeal of Helen Mirren in these action-packed popcorn flicks. By every ramification, the Red series stands as a testament to the unexpected joys of cinema. Who would have thought that a retired, extremely dangerous crew comprising Hollywood icons would become a box office sensation? Yet it did, and much of that success is owed to Helen Mirren's captivating portrayal of Victoria Winslow. Her ability to shine in high-octane action films, coupled with her undeniable talent, cements her status as an actress who can excel in any genre and ensures the series remains a beloved part of her diverse filmography. Nyra in The Owls of Ga'Hoole. Nyra, with her striking red marks between her eyes, was a character who demanded more than just a visual presence. She required a voice that would breathe life into her cunning and ambition, and Helen Mirren delivered that in spades. Every word that escaped Nyra's beak was not merely dialogue. It was a symphony of emotions, an aria of ambition, and a ballad of wisdom. Helen's portrayal of Neera was a testament to her ability to use her voice as a finely tuned instrument of acting and entertainment. But what made Neera stand out from the characters Helen had portrayed before was the unique kind of poise that the character demanded. Her character wasn't just a dominating force, she was a commanding presence that left an indelible mark on every scene she graced. Helen's portrayal of Neera was not about physicality or grand gestures. It was about the subtle nuances of her voice, the way she could convey power, cunning, and complexity through the medium of animation. Now let's talk about how the producers knew they had found the perfect fit in Helen Mirren for the role of Neera. You see, casting Neera wasn't just about finding a famous name. It was about finding an actor who could capture the essence of this enigmatic character. Helen's reputation as a versatile actress who could tackle a wide range of roles made her an appealing choice from the outset. When the auditions for Neera began, it became clear that Helen Mirren had a deep understanding of the character. Her ability to convey the layers of Neera's personality through her voice was nothing short of extraordinary. The producers saw in her the rare combination of talent and experience that could bring Neera to life in a way that would captivate audiences of all ages. And as the film unfolded, it became evident that their intuition had been spot on. Helen Mirren's portrayal of Neera not only dominated the scenes but also elevated the entire movie. She breathed life into an animated character, making Neera a memorable figure in the pantheon of animated cinema. Queen Elizabeth II in the audience. Helen Mirren starred in the 2013 production of The Audience, and it was simply mesmerizing. This gripping drama, set against the backdrop of Buckingham Palace, explores the weekly meetings, known as audiences, between Queen Elizabeth II and her prime ministers. The production made its debut in London's West End, gracing the stage at the renowned Gielgud Theatre. In The Audience, Helen Mirren undertook the monumental task of portraying Queen Elizabeth II. It's a role that demands not only exceptional acting prowess, but also a deep understanding of the complexities of a monarch's life. And true to her reputation as a master of her craft, Mirren delivered a performance that left audiences in awe. Mirren's portrayal of Queen Elizabeth II is nothing short of extraordinary. She effortlessly captures the regal bearing and dignified presence of the monarch. But it's not just the outward facade. Mirren delves into the character's inner world, providing insight into the challenges, joys, and sorrows that come with a lifetime of royal duty. The heart of The Audience lies in the interactions between Queen Elizabeth II and her prime ministers, a roll call of political giants spanning the decades. Mirren's ability to seamlessly transition between the different eras of her reign is a testament to her versatility as an actress. Whether she's engaging in witty banter with Winston Churchill or navigating the complexities of her relationship with Margaret Thatcher, Mirren's performance is a masterclass in character portrayal. The Audience garnered critical acclaim, with reviewers and audiences alike hailing Helen Mirren's performance as Queen Elizabeth II. Her ability to convey the weight of history, the challenges of leadership, and the personal moments that define a monarch's life is truly remarkable. It's a role that demands depth and nuance, and Mirren delivers on all fronts. In the end, Mirren's performance is a captivating journey into the world of a monarch who has witnessed decades of political change and personal growth. It's a role that showcases her versatility and cements her status as one of the greatest actresses of our time, both on the stage and on the screen. Dean Abigail in Monsters University. Despite being an animation, in the whimsical world of Pixar, where monsters under the bed become the stars of the show, the legendary Helen Mirren joined the cast, lending her formidable talents to the animated realm. Mirren took on the role of Dean Abigail Hardscrabble, a character that would send shivers down the spines of both the animated student body and the audience. As Dean Hardscrabble, Mirren embodied the essence of intimidation. She portrayed the chair of the university's esteemed Scarer program, a position that demanded respect and inspired fear in equal measure. With her dragon-like appearance and a presence that could send chills down your spine, Mirren's character was every bit as legendary as the university's reputation. What added a layer of intrigue to Dean Hardscrabble was her impressive backstory. She held the all-time scream record, a feat that only added to the aura of awe and dread surrounding her character. Mirren's performance made it all too easy to believe that this character had earned her place in the Monster Hall of Fame. One of the remarkable aspects of Monsters University was its ability to appeal to both children and adults in the audience. Mirren herself praised the film for its wide-ranging appeal. Her portrayal of Dean Hardscrabble added a touch of sophistication and gravitas to the animated world, proving that even in a realm of colorful monsters and playful antics, there's room for a character who really knows her business. Her involvement in Pixar's Monsters University was a delightful addition to her diverse repertoire. It showcased her ability to captivate audiences of all ages, even in the realm of animation, as well as adding a depth and a touch of gravitas to a character that would have been right at home in a monster's nightmare. It's a testament to her versatility as an actress, proving once again that Helen Mirren can shine in any role, no matter how unexpected or fantastical. Queenie Shaw in The Fate of the Furious. The Fast and Furious franchise. In the 8th installment of this iconic franchise, The Fate of the Furious, a new character roared onto the scene, and she was none other than the indomitable Helen Mirren, poised to leave her mark on the adrenaline-pumping saga. Picture the Shaw family, notorious for their intimidating presence, with Jason Statham and Luke Evans at the helm. Now imagine someone even more formidable, and you've got Helen Mirren, a vision of fierceness draped head to toe in cheetah print. Her entrance into the Fast and Furious universe was nothing short of electrifying. The story of how Mirren joined this high-octane ensemble is as intriguing as the franchise itself. It all began at a party where franchise lead Vin Diesel found himself face-to-face with the legendary actress. In a moment that would change the course of the film, Mirren expressed her desire to be a part of this action-packed world. The script for the next installment was already greenlit, but Diesel, ever the orchestrator of epic moments, decided to pull some strings. "She got written in," he declared with a grin, ensuring that Mirren's formidable presence would grace the franchise. While her role in Fast and Furious may have been brief, Helen Mirren made sure her impact was anything but. As the matriarch of the Shaw family, she exuded a level of authority and power that sent shockwaves through the film. Her character was a force to be reckoned with, and Mirren's portrayal left audiences in awe. In the midst of high-speed chases, explosive action, and gravity-defying stunts, Helen Mirren added a touch of class and gravitas to the Fast and Furious universe. Her cameo was a reminder that in this world of muscle cars and adrenaline rushes, there's always room for an acting legend to make her formidable presence known. Helen Mirren's appearance in the 8th installment of the Fast and Furious franchise was a moment of cinematic magic. Her journey from a chance encounter at a party to becoming an integral part of this adrenaline-fueled saga is a testament to the allure of the franchise. Mirren's role, however brief, left an indelible mark, proving once again that in the world of Fast and Furious, unexpected surprises are part of the thrilling package. Click this video to watch the sad death of another epic personality in Hollywood, Donna Douglas.
When it comes to Hollywood sweethearts, so many ladies are on the list, but none of these actresses were quite like the amazing Carol Wayne. There was more to her than met the eye, and men from all over the world were drawn to her for reasons beyond her physical beauty. The matinee lady effect. It's the ultimate example of why men were drawn to her. She wasn't just another pretty face. She had this magical blend of innocence and sensuality that was downright magnetic. She'd walk onto the Tonight Show set with that dazzling smile, playing this sweet but slightly ditzy character who seemed completely unaware of how jaw-droppingly gorgeous she was. That mix of naivety and bombshell energy? Men couldn't resist it. Her flirtation was never over the top. It wasn't aggressive or intimidating. It was playful. It was the kind of teasing that left men grinning, wondering if there was a wink hidden behind her big doe-like eyes. And then you'd have Johnny Carson, cool as ever, setting her up for these hilarious double entendres. The chemistry between them was electric. Johnny would toss out a sly line, and Carol, with perfect comedic timing, would deliver a somehow innocent and suggestive response. It was pure magic. But here's the thing. She owned that character. Men watching at home saw her as the ultimate fantasy, a woman who was stunning, funny, and approachable. She didn't come across as untouchable or overly polished like some other stars of her time. Instead, she felt like someone you'd dream about meeting at a party, the kind of woman who'd laugh at your jokes and make you feel like the most interesting guy in the room. And let's not forget how her presence amplified Johnny Carson's humor. She wasn't just there to stand and look pretty, she was a comedic partner. She'd roll with the jokes, often playing the oblivious foil to Carson's quick wit, and men ate it up because it made her seem even more endearing. She was the bombshell with a heart and a sense of humor, and that's a rare combination. Men didn't just want to look at her, they wanted to be around her. And she was a classic Hollywood beauty. When you think of the ultimate 1970s bombshell, she fits the picture perfectly. Her striking blonde hair was the kind of golden cascade that turned heads wherever she went, effortlessly glamorous without looking overdone. But her hourglass figure? It was pure old Hollywood, the kind of silhouette men dreamed about and women admired. And then there was her smile, radiant and warm, with just the right amount of playfulness to make you feel like she had a secret she might share, but only with you. What set Carol apart from many other beauties of her time was how she embodied the idealized look of the era while still feeling relatable. She didn't have the icy, untouchable vibe of someone like Grace Kelly or the overpowering appeal of Raquel Welch. Carol was glamorous, yes, but in a way that felt down to earth. Her beauty wasn't intimidating. It was approachable. She looked like the kind of woman you could take to a fancy dinner and still joke around with afterward. Compared to her contemporaries, she struck a balance that was rare. Marilyn Monroe before her was all about mystery and seduction, while 1970s stars like Farrah Fawcett leaned more toward fresh-faced, sporty allure. Carol, on the other hand, seemed to exist in this perfect middle ground, effortlessly sexy, but never over the top. She carried herself with an ease that made men feel like they might actually have a chance with her, even if she was light years out of their league. Her look was so iconic because it wasn't just about her features, it was about her presence. When she walked into a room or appeared on screen, she didn't just attract attention, she held it. That mix of timeless beauty and an inviting charm was exactly what made Carol Wayne stand out and why she remained such a memorable figure from that golden era of television. Her magnetic personality. Her warm and friendly personality made her truly unforgettable. People who worked with her often described her as kind, approachable, and genuinely down-to-earth qualities that set her apart in the often cutthroat world of Hollywood. Unlike some stars of her era, she didn't put on airs or treat people like they were beneath her. Instead, she had a way of making everyone feel at ease, whether they were a co-star, a crew member, or a fan. One story that keeps popping up is how she treated everyone on set with the same level of respect and kindness. From assistants to producers, people would recall her stopping to chat, flashing that famous smile and making them feel seen. She had this knack for breaking the ice in a way that felt natural, even in high-pressure environments. For someone who radiated star power, she was remarkably humble. Johnny Carson, for one, seemed to really appreciate her easygoing nature. While he was known to have a sharp wit and sometimes a prickly demeanor, Carol's warmth helped create that effortless chemistry they shared during their sketches. She had a way of rolling with his jokes and never taking herself too seriously, which audiences loved. That same ability to laugh at herself made her even more endearing. She wasn't just another pretty face, but someone who could laugh along with the audience and with herself. There's another layer to her personality that made her relatable. Despite her fame, Carol was known to struggle with self-doubt and insecurity. Instead of hiding it, she let glimpses of that vulnerability show, and people loved her all the more for it. It made her human, someone you could root for, not just admire from afar. At the end of the day, Carol Wayne wasn't just someone men wanted to be with, she was someone everyone wanted to be around. Her genuine kindness and ability to connect with people made her as unforgettable off-screen as she was on it. Her playful humor. While she's best remembered for her comedic turn as the matinee lady on The Tonight Show, Carol showed time and again that she was far more than a one-note actress. Her ability to step into different roles, from drama to lighthearted comedy, left a lasting impression on audiences, and men in particular couldn't get enough of it. In the early stages of her career, Carol appeared in a variety of TV shows and films that showcased her range. She wasn't confined to one genre. For instance, she had roles on TV series like I Dream of Jeannie and the Man from UNCLE, where she played everything from a glamorous guest star to a more dramatic, mysterious character. These appearances were proof that she could adapt to any role, never letting her beauty overshadow her acting chops. In films like The Happy Hooker Goes to Washington and The Big Bus, Carol also showed her talent for both comedic and slightly risque roles, playing characters with humor and charm, but also depth. Men admired how effortlessly she shifted between roles, whether she was delivering deadpan comedy or adding a bit of dramatic weight to a scene. It was this ability to adapt that made her even more captivating. She wasn't just playing a part. She was bringing something unique to each role, keeping audiences interested and engaged. What really stood out was Carol's ability to balance her glamorous blonde bombshell persona with a more subtle, nuanced performance. In one instance, she played a more serious role on The Rockford Files, where she wasn't just eye candy, but a complex character with a storyline that required genuine acting. Men who had originally admired her for her comedic timing and beauty were now impressed by her depth and range. It wasn't just about looking good, she was showing them that she could handle more than just the dumb blonde stereotype. This versatility earned her a lot of respect. Men didn't just admire her for her beauty anymore, they saw her as someone with serious acting ability. She could walk into a comedy scene and have everyone in stitches, then shift into a more serious moment without missing a beat. That's what made her stand out in Hollywood, especially when so many actresses were pigeonholed into one type of role. Carol never allowed herself to be typecast, and men admired her for that. She was more than just the girl next door or the bombshell. She was an actress who could hold her own no matter the role. Her versatility made her even more appealing because it showcased her as an all-around woman, someone who could light up a screen with her humor, dazzle with her looks, and still hold the audience's attention when the story got serious. This rare combination is exactly why men admired Carol so much. She wasn't just a fleeting star. She was a true talent who could thrive in any role, and that kept her interesting long after the screen went dark. Her real vulnerability. Men were drawn to this aspect of her personality because it gave her an authenticity that made her feel real, like someone you could connect with on a deeper level. Behind her dazzling smile and glamorous image, Carol struggled with self-doubt and insecurity, something she often kept hidden from the public eye. Those who knew her best, though, recognized that she was not immune to the pressures that came with being a public figure in Hollywood. She sometimes questioned her looks, her worth, and her abilities, which, ironically, made her even more endearing. She wasn't perfect, and she didn't pretend to be. She showed a side of herself that was unguarded, and that's what made her more approachable and human in the eyes of men. What really made this vulnerability stand out was how she balanced it with the image of the glamorous star. When Carol stepped onto a stage or appeared on a talk show, it was clear she had a command of the room, but behind that public persona was a woman who longed for reassurance, just like anyone else. That contrast between the poised, on-screen bombshell and the more uncertain woman off-camera made her even more appealing. It was as though she wasn't trying to live up to an unattainable ideal. Instead, she allowed herself to be real, and that authenticity was something men appreciated. Men found this vulnerability refreshing because it's rare to see a woman in Hollywood, especially one as beautiful and glamorous as Carol, who didn't constantly project a sense of invincibility. Instead of hiding her flaws, Carol allowed them to be seen. It was this self-awareness, this ability to acknowledge her insecurities, that made her feel more grounded, more like someone you could actually get to know and understand. And yet, despite her vulnerability, she still commanded attention, and men found that balance irresistible. There's something deeply attractive about someone who is secure enough to embrace their imperfections. Carol's ability to show a softer, more introspective side while still radiating warmth and beauty is what made her so magnetic. She wasn't just a star, she was a person with depth, someone you could relate to beyond her on-screen roles. This vulnerability wasn't always visible in her work, but it shone through in the little moments. The way she interacted with her co-stars, her willingness to share a laugh at her own expense, or the times when she let her guard down just enough to reveal that she wasn't perfect. It made men admire her more because she wasn't just a fantasy or a flawless figure. She was someone who had her struggles, just like anyone else, and that made her more real and more lovable. Her captivating eyes. Carol Wayne's eyes were, without a doubt, one of her most captivating features, and they played a huge role in why men were so drawn to her. They were extremely beautiful and had an incredible depth that could convey multiple emotions at once. In every scene, her big, expressive eyes spoke volumes, often saying more than words ever could. Whether she was in a comedic skit, a dramatic role, or just being herself on talk shows, those eyes became a window into her soul, making her instantly magnetic to anyone who watched. Her eyes had this perfect combination of innocence, mischief, and allure. They could look wide and innocent, like a sweet girl next door, and then, in the next moment, flicker with a hint of mischief or flirtation, making it clear that there was more to her than met the eye. In comedy sketches, her eyes were often used to her advantage. When she'd deliver a deadpan line or play the naive character, those big eyes would often give away her true understanding of the joke, creating a subtle but playful tension that made her even more endearing. In moments of romance or flirtation, her eyes were mesmerizing. They could convey a sense of longing or vulnerability, drawing men in with an unspoken promise of mystery and possibility. It wasn't just about how they looked, it was about how they made you feel. Carol's gaze had a way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room, even if you were just watching her on TV. There was an intimacy in her eyes that made every scene more engaging. Her eyes were also a part of her charm in real life. When you hear people talk about Carol Wayne off-screen, many mention how her eyes would light up when she smiled or how they could convey warmth and kindness in an instant. Men admired how those eyes seemed to reflect her personality, genuine, approachable, but also undeniably captivating. What made Carol's eyes stand out even more was how they contrasted with the glamour and the polish of Hollywood at the time. While many actresses were made up to perfection, Carol's eyes told a different story. They were natural, full of life, and full of expression. They gave her an authenticity that set her apart from the typical Hollywood look. It wasn't just her beauty that men were drawn to. It was the way her eyes told stories, whether it was through the innocence of her gaze, the hint of mischief behind it, or the allure that made her impossible to look away from. Signature presence. There was something about the way she carried herself that commanded attention without needing to be the loudest or the most in-your-face person in the room. Whether she was on The Tonight Show next to Johnny Carson or in any scene, Carol had this quiet but powerful magnetism that made her stand out instantly. It was a rare quality, one that didn't rely on constant chatter or over-the-top gestures. Instead, it was all about the subtlety of her demeanor. First, there was the way Carol used her expressions. Her face could convey so much with just a slight arch of her eyebrow or the faintest smile. She didn't need to overact or exaggerate. With one look, she could go from playful to serious, from innocent to mischievous, and it always felt completely natural. Men were drawn to that. It wasn't the loud, dramatic gestures they were used to from Hollywood starlets. Carol's ability to draw attention through just a flicker of expression was fascinating. Then there was her posture. Carol always stood tall with grace, yet there was something incredibly relaxed about the way she held herself. She didn't seem stiff or forced. There was a confidence in the way she stood that came off as effortless. When she was in a scene, whether she was delivering a joke or just sharing a moment with Johnny Carson, she always seemed comfortable in her own skin. Her confidence didn't scream for attention, it simply was. Men admired that kind of natural, unshakable presence. She didn't have to prove anything. She simply existed, and that drew people in. Even when she was standing next to someone like Johnny Carson with his larger-than-life personality, Carol's presence was undeniable. She didn't need to be the center of attention to steal the scene. Just her standing there with her charm and grace made her magnetic. When she flashed a smile or tilted her head slightly, it was as if the whole room focused on her. She had this ability to make even the most mundane moments feel electric, simply because she was in the room. Men were drawn to this signature presence because it was different from what they saw in most Hollywood actresses of the time. While many were loud, flashy, or trying hard to be noticed, Carol had an ease about her that made you want to pay attention. It was as if she knew exactly how much to give, never too little but never overdone. She could be quiet yet commanding, subtle but striking, and that was part of what made her so unforgettable. Whether she was cracking a joke with Johnny or simply sitting in the background, Carol Wayne had a way of making every moment feel special just because she was there. Her quiet confidence. She didn't need to constantly remind everyone of her beauty or talent. She simply was beautiful and talented, and she carried herself with a quiet assurance that made her even more attractive. It wasn't the loud, attention-grabbing confidence often associated with Hollywood stars. Hers was more refined, more natural. Men loved that about her because it felt real. Carol didn't walk into a room and demand attention. She didn't need to. There was something about her presence that made you notice her without her having to say or do anything. Whether she was on The Tonight Show beside Johnny Carson or on set, she radiated an inner confidence that wasn't cocky or overbearing, but instead, it was a calm, collected strength that was magnetic. What made Carol's confidence so special was that it didn't come across as arrogance. She didn't flaunt her beauty or her success. She simply embraced it. While many stars in Hollywood could be seen trying to outshine everyone, Carol had a way of standing out without even trying. Her beauty was undeniable, but she never used it as a tool to overshadow others. There was an ease in the way she moved through the world, whether she was making a joke, sharing a moment with a co-star, or just sitting in the background. Men admired that effortless self-assurance because it felt grounded and authentic. It made her approachable rather than intimidating. Her confidence also made her incredibly charismatic. When she spoke, you listened, not because she demanded attention, but because there was something magnetic in her demeanor. She knew who she was and didn't feel the need to prove herself to anyone. It was a trait that made her even more appealing to men because it signaled that she wasn't just a pretty face. She had substance and an inner strength that didn't need to be broadcasted. It was the kind of confidence that made Carol feel like someone you could actually connect with, someone who was both strong and relatable at the same time. Men found that balance irresistible. Her ability to shine without overshadowing others, her self-assurance without arrogance. It was this quiet confidence that made Carol Wayne an unforgettable figure. Soft and compassionate. By every stretch of the imagination, she was someone who genuinely cared about others, and it showed in everything she did. Those who worked with her consistently spoke about how kind, thoughtful, and generous she was, both on and off the screen. This warmth made her someone you wanted to be around, someone you could talk to easily without the usual walls that come with fame. One of the things that stood out most about Carol was her ability to make people feel comfortable. Whether it was a fellow actor, a crew member, or even someone she met briefly, she had this way of making them feel seen and heard. She wasn't just nodding along to a conversation, she was fully present. That kind of attention to detail, the ability to make people feel important in an often fast-paced, impersonal industry, was something rare. Men especially were drawn to that. In a world full of superficial interactions, Carol's ability to be genuinely kind and compassionate was incredibly appealing. It was a reminder that beauty and fame don't need to overshadow who you are as a person. Carol's compassion wasn't just about being friendly, it was about her generosity of spirit. There are several stories of how she would go out of her way to help others, whether it was offering support to a colleague who was going through a tough time or just being a sounding board for someone in need. She didn't expect anything in return. She just had a natural instinct to care for the people around her. Men loved that quality because it showed depth. It was easy to admire someone for their looks, but it was the kindness behind those looks that made her unforgettable. She also had a softness in her approach to humor. While many actresses could be sharp or harsh in their delivery, Carol had a gentler way of getting laughs. Her comedic timing was flawless, but there was always an underlying sweetness in her performances. She didn't need to be biting or sarcastic to be funny. Her humor came from a place of warmth. That made her more relatable and human, which men found incredibly attractive. Hollywood always had shining stars, but beneath the surface lies a darker side, a history marked by manipulation, betrayal, and cruelty. Some actresses didn't just play villains on screen. They brought their ruthlessness into real life. From feuds that destroyed careers to schemes that went far beyond the cameras, their actions weren't just scandalous, they were downright chilling. But who were these women, and what made them cross the line? Norma Shearer. She was a stunning, poised actress at the top of her game in the 1930s, but with a little secret weapon up her sleeve: her husband, Irving Thalberg, the head honcho of MGM, the most powerful studio at the time. Being married to the boy wonder of Hollywood meant Norma wasn't just any actress. She practically had a direct line to the casting couch, and not in the way you'd think. Here's where it gets juicy. Norma was accused of using her marital connection to snag roles that other actresses were gunning for, sometimes ruthlessly. Take Joan Crawford, for instance. She and Norma were in a not-so-subtle battle for the spotlight. Joan once said, "How can I compete with Norma? She sleeps with the boss." It wasn't just Joan, though. Myrna Loy, another MGM star, also felt the sting of Norma's influence. Loy believed she lost roles because Norma had first dibs on the juiciest scripts. Norma wasn't just sitting around waiting for opportunities to fall into her lap, though. Oh no, she hustled. She even went so far as to commission provocative photos of herself to prove she could handle sexier, edgier roles like the lead in The Divorcee, a part that won her an Oscar. That move was bold, but it didn't win her many friends. Other actresses saw it as her playing dirty, using her privilege and connections to bulldoze her way to the top. And here's the kicker: Norma wasn't apologetic about any of it. She knew the power she had, and she used it shamelessly. To her, it was survival in a cutthroat industry. But to those on the losing end, like Joan and Myrna, it looked more like sabotage. Norma's career eventually faded, but her reputation as a savvy and selfish player in Hollywood's golden era is still part of her legacy. Was she a villain, or just a smart woman making the most of her circumstances? Depends on how you look at it. Either way, she left her mark, and not everyone was happy about it. Mae West. When you hear her name, you think of Hollywood's original queen of sass and self-promotion. Mae wasn't just a star, she was a force of nature, strutting through the entertainment world like she owned it. And honestly, she kinda did. But here's the thing. While Mae was bold, brilliant, and completely unforgettable, she had a way of making everything revolve around one person: Mae West. Mae was all about Mae, and she didn't care who got overshadowed along the way. In interviews, she'd dominate the conversation with her razor-sharp wit and trademark double entendres, barely giving anyone else a chance to shine. Co-stars, directors, they were just supporting characters in the Mae West show. She once said, "I never loved anybody as much as I loved myself." And let me tell you, she lived by that motto. On set, Mae insisted on having complete control over her lines, her wardrobe, and even how her scenes were shot. Directors found her exhausting, and co-stars often complained they were reduced to mere props. One infamous story involves a young Cary Grant, who got his big break in She Done Him Wrong because Mae thought he was hot. She literally plucked him out of obscurity and made him her leading man, but only because he made her look good. Mae even wrote most of her own scripts, which sounds impressive until you realize they were mostly vehicles for her to deliver one-liners and look fabulous. If a scene wasn't all about her, she'd either rewrite it or refuse to shoot it. Her co-stars? They were lucky if they got a word in edgewise. But here's the thing about May. She didn't care if people thought she was selfish. In fact, she leaned into it. She famously said, "I'm not afraid of criticism. I gave up that fear long ago." To May, being selfish wasn't a flaw. It was a survival strategy in an industry that chews people up and spits them out. So, love her or hate her, Mae West made Hollywood play by her rules. Was she selfish? Absolutely. But she was also a trailblazer, proving that a woman could run the show and own it without apologizing for a second. Marilyn Monroe. She had the looks, the charm, and that breathy voice that made her an icon, but behind all the glamour was a woman who didn't always play nice. Sure, Marilyn seemed like the sweet, shy girl next door, but in reality, she could be manipulative, selfish, and frustrating to deal with. Marilyn had a way of making everything about her, especially when it came to relationships. She charmed men with ease, but many of them, from Joe DiMaggio to Arthur Miller, felt like they were used as stepping stones or props to maintain her image. Marilyn craved adoration, and if she wasn't the center of attention, she'd find a way to turn the spotlight back on herself. She had a knack for keeping people hooked on her vulnerability, but some insiders felt it was all part of her act, a way to control those around her. On set, Marilyn's behavior drove directors and co-stars up the wall. She was notoriously late, sometimes by hours, leaving entire crews waiting while she finished getting ready or dealt with her personal dramas. Directors like Billy Wilder, who worked with her on Some Like It Hot, called her a nightmare to work with, even if the results were worth it. Studio executives lost money because of her delays, and she'd show up unprepared, forgetting her lines and making scenes take twice as long to shoot. What's wild is that Marilyn's antics weren't always accidental. Some believed she showed up late or caused chaos on purpose just to keep everyone off balance and ensure she remained the most important person in the room. She once said, "If I'd observed all the rules, I'd never have got anywhere." And honestly, that tells you everything you need to know. Still, Marilyn's charm was her secret weapon. Even when she upset people, they couldn't stay mad for long. She knew how to win people over with a pout or a laugh, and she leaned into that power whenever it suited her. Was she selfish? Probably. But in her world, where everyone wanted a piece of her, maybe it was the only way she knew how to survive. Lana Turner. She was known as the ultimate Hollywood glamour queen, famous for her beauty, charisma, and string of headline-grabbing romances. But beneath the shimmering exterior, Lana's personal life was a whirlwind of drama and questionable priorities, especially when it came to her role as a mother. Her focus on fame, love, and maintaining her image often left her daughter, Cheryl Crane, feeling like an afterthought in her life. Lana's love life was a tabloid dream, or nightmare, depending on how you look at it. She married 8 times to 7 different men, and each relationship seemed more chaotic than the last. Her constant search for love and validation often overshadowed her responsibilities as a mother. Cheryl, her only child, grew up in the middle of this storm, frequently shuffled to the side as Lana pursued her next romance or career move. The most infamous chapter of Lana's life, and the one that put her relationship with Cheryl under a microscope, was the demise of her abusive boyfriend, Johnny Stompanato, in 1958. Stompanato was a mobster who had been physically and emotionally abusive to Lana. One night, during a particularly violent argument between Lana and Johnny, 14-year-old Cheryl intervened. She grabbed a knife and stabbed Stompanato to protect her mother. The incident was ruled justifiable homicide, but it threw Cheryl into the spotlight and left her emotionally scarred. Many people blamed Lana for exposing Cheryl to such a toxic environment in the first place. Critics said Lana's pattern of prioritizing her own happiness, especially in her choice of volatile, dangerous men, put her daughter in harm's way. Cheryl later revealed that she felt neglected and isolated, living in the shadow of her mother's glamorous yet chaotic life. She described how Lana's obsession with her public image often left her feeling like an accessory, not a priority. Even after the Stompanato tragedy, Lana continued to focus on maintaining her movie star persona, often at the expense of her relationship with Cheryl. Their mother-daughter bond remained strained for years, with Cheryl struggling to find her own identity outside of Lana's shadow. Lana's story is a complex one. On the one hand, she was a woman navigating a male-dominated industry, doing whatever it took to stay on top. On the other hand, her relentless pursuit of fame and love left behind a trail of emotional wreckage, with her daughter paying the steepest price. It's a classic case of Hollywood glamour hiding a much darker reality underneath. Gloria Swanson. This woman wasn't just a Hollywood actress. She was a powerhouse. In the silent film era, she ruled the screen with her dramatic flair, extravagant wardrobe, and larger-than-life persona. But behind all of that, Swanson had a reputation for doing whatever it took to get ahead, even if it meant stepping on a few toes or breaking hearts along the way. Swanson's ambition was unmatched. She wasn't content with being just another actress. She wanted to be the star. And she wasn't afraid to manipulate the people around her to climb higher. One of the most talked about examples was her relationship with Joseph P. Kennedy, father of future President John F. Kennedy. Kennedy wasn't just her lover. He was also her financier, helping to fund her lavish lifestyle and her failing production company. Swanson benefited greatly from the relationship, but when the financial fallout came, Kennedy walked away relatively unscathed, while Swanson's career took a hit. Critics argue she used Kennedy as much as he used her, making their affair a textbook case of mutual manipulation. Professionally, Swanson had a way of alienating people. She was fiercely independent and demanded creative control over her projects, which wasn't common for actresses at the time. While her drive was admirable, it didn't win her many friends in the industry. Directors and producers often found her difficult to work with because she insisted on doing things her way, even if it caused friction on set. Her personal life was just as messy. Swanson married 6 times, and her relationships often ended in scandal or bitterness. She seemed to view her partners as stepping stones, prioritizing her career over building lasting connections. Her third husband, French aristocrat Henri de la Falaise, was a particularly dramatic case. Their marriage gave her an air of European sophistication that elevated her status, but it ended when the glitter faded, leaving yet another broken tie in her wake. By the time she starred in Sunset Boulevard, her iconic comeback role that mirrored her own life, Swanson's reputation as a self-serving, fiercely ambitious star had already been cemented. In many ways, her performance as Norma Desmond was more autobiographical than anyone realized. Was Gloria Swanson a villain? Not exactly. She was a woman in an unforgiving industry, fighting for control of her destiny. But her relentless ambition often left others hurt, discarded, or disillusioned. To some, she was a trailblazer. To others, she was simply ruthless. Tallulah Bankhead. If you thought the luxurious lifestyle and fame of old Hollywood was all about prim and proper behavior, Bankhead proved you wrong. She was loud, brash, and lived life on her own terms, often at the expense of everyone around her. Bankhead's reputation for wild behavior was legendary. She was known for her heavy drinking, drug use, and a string of fiery affairs that were as scandalous as they were public. But what really set her apart was her complete lack of a filter. She wasn't afraid to speak her mind, and when she did, it was often sharp, biting, and at times cruel. Her sharp tongue was both a weapon and a shield. Bankhead had a knack for making ruthless, cutting remarks about everyone, from co-stars to directors and even her own family. She once told a fellow actress, "I don't care what you do as long as you don't do it in the street and frighten the horses," a line that perfectly summed up her unapologetic nature. She would go out of her way to make people uncomfortable, whether by mocking others' looks or questioning their intelligence. It wasn't that she was insecure, quite the opposite. She just didn't care about anyone else's feelings. Her cruelty extended beyond just words, too. On set, Bankhead was known for being difficult to work with, often causing trouble during shoots. Directors found her hard to control, and she frequently showed up late or in no condition to work, thanks to her partying habits. Yet somehow she managed to still get roles, largely due to her outrageous charm and undeniable screen presence. Bankhead's personal life was just as turbulent. She had multiple love affairs, some with famous men and women, but never seemed to form lasting connections. She used people as disposable objects to satisfy her own needs, whether it was attention, companionship, or just a wild night of fun. For her, relationships were more about entertainment than genuine emotional connection. Yet, despite all the chaos, Tallulah Bankhead became a cult figure, beloved by some for her outlandishness and celebrated for living a life that most could only dream of in terms of freedom, albeit with consequences. She didn't give a damn about social norms or expectations, and while many found her antics tiresome or even cruel, others admired her boldness. She lived life on her own terms, and damn the consequences. In the end, Tallulah Bankhead was more than just a Hollywood star. She was a chaotic force of nature, a person who didn't care what others thought, and who would rather burn bridges than play nice. In a way, she was the perfect reflection of an industry that often valued the appearance of perfection over the messiness of real life. Barbara Stanwyck. She had a reputation for being a master at playing tough, no-nonsense characters on screen, but it seems she took a bit of that tough exterior into her personal life, too. Stanwyck was all about self-preservation. She knew how to build a career and maintain an image, but she also had a knack for cutting ties with people when they no longer served her interests. She wasn't the type to keep people around just for the sake of it, whether it was friends, co-stars, or even family. If someone no longer had a role in her life, they were quickly shown the door. There was no room for sentimentality in Stanwyck's world. Her fiercely private nature didn't help her popularity in Hollywood circles either. While other stars might bask in the spotlight and engage with their colleagues or fans, Stanwyck kept her distance, often keeping to herself or her closest circle of people. She had a strict keep your business to yourself policy, which sometimes made her seem aloof, standoffish, or even unapproachable. This detached nature didn't endear her to some of her co-stars or those working closely with her. Despite being a beloved and respected actress, she often isolated herself on set, leaving others to feel like they didn't have a real connection with her. There was a certain coldness to her, especially when it came to personal relationships. She had 2 marriages, both of which ended badly. The first to actor Frank Fay was rocky, marked by infidelity and tension, and after their divorce, Stanwyck's relationships with men were often seen as transactional rather than emotionally fulfilling. Stanwyck's approach to relationships wasn't just about keeping things private. It was about control. She was known for playing the role of the hard-nosed, calculating woman in many of her films, but it seems that role extended off-screen too. When she felt someone was a threat to her career, her personal space, or her privacy, they were quickly cut off. It wasn't about being mean. It was about protecting her territory, her image, and her career from anything that might cause her harm. Though many admired her for her unmatched acting talent, her emotional detachment and self-preserving nature left a trail of broken ties in Hollywood. While she was deeply respected for her work and known for being a professional on set, she wasn't the kind of person who would stick around for the long haul when it came to friendships or anything that didn't directly benefit her. Stanwyck's legacy is filled with glowing accolades for her skill, but her personal story is one of cold pragmatism and calculated decisions. She wasn't afraid to burn bridges if it meant advancing herself or protecting her space. Bette Davis. She was raw, unapologetic, and fiercely determined to maintain her star status no matter what it took. But in her relentless pursuit of stardom, Davis wasn't exactly concerned with how many bridges she burned or who got offended along the way. In fact, she seemed to almost revel in her reputation for being tough, demanding, and sometimes downright cruel. Her famous feuds and sharp tongue were as much a part of her legacy as her Oscar-winning performances. One of the most legendary and most vicious rivalries in Hollywood history was the one between Bette Davis and Joan Crawford. Their feud, which started in the 1930s, reached new heights when they were cast as the leads in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane in 1962. The two actresses couldn't have been more different, and their animosity went beyond mere professional competition. Davis once said, "She's a bitch, but she's my bitch." That pretty much sums up the animosity between them. There was no love lost, only cold, calculated contempt. The stories from the set of Baby Jane are legendary. They would constantly try to one-up each other, sabotaging each other's scenes and playing psychological games behind the scenes. It wasn't just on-screen drama. It was real, personal, and filled with spite. But Davis didn't reserve her sharp tongue for just one person. She was known for cutting people down, colleagues or not. She didn't care if she offended anyone with her direct and often hurtful criticisms. Directors, co-stars, and even studio heads could find themselves on the receiving end of Davis's biting remarks. She was a woman who demanded perfection from herself and everyone around her, and if you didn't measure up, you were fair game. If you couldn't take the heat, you were quickly discarded. It wasn't about making friends for Bette. It was about making sure she stayed on top, no matter the cost. Davis's famous outbursts and public criticism didn't make her popular in Hollywood, but they certainly kept her in the conversation. She was known for her bluntness and her refusal to play the game the way the studio system wanted her to. While many stars of the time were busy towing the line and maintaining a squeaky clean image, Davis made it clear she was going to do things her way, even if it meant stepping on a few toes along the way. Her story is one of fierce determination, but also one marked by a trail of offended colleagues and damaged relationships. Davis wasn't afraid to ruffle feathers if it meant maintaining her status as one of the greatest actresses in Hollywood, and while that made her unforgettable, it also made her a polarizing figure. In the end, Bette Davis proved that in the cutthroat world of Hollywood, it wasn't enough to just be talented. You also had to be willing to fight, even if it meant losing a few friends along the way. Joan Crawford. Here's what you may not know. Joan Crawford is one of the most infamous stars in Hollywood history, but not for the reasons most would expect. While she was adored by millions for her glamorous roles behind closed doors, Crawford's life was a storm of manipulation, control, and a relentless desire for success at any cost. Crawford was known for putting her career above everything else, family included. She often seemed to view her relationships, especially with her children, as mere extensions of her public image, which she worked tirelessly to maintain. But her personal life was far from ideal, and it wasn't long before rumors began to swirl about how she treated her family, especially her children. In her later years, her adopted daughter, Christina Crawford, famously penned a memoir called Mommy Dearest, in which she accused Joan of severe emotional and physical abuse. The book portrayed Crawford as a cold, controlling mother, and the revelations were shocking. Christina described Joan as a woman who expected perfection, punished her children for minor transgressions, and was a tyrant behind closed doors. The fans may have loved them, at first, because after all they've built a career by acting well, but through the corridors of Hollywood others saw them for what they truly were. Whether misunderstood or just plain obnoxious, these actors were some of the most hated celebrities of their time. Louis B. Mayer. He was the big boss of MGM Studios back in Hollywood's golden era. Now you'd think being the head of one of the most powerful studios would make him a beloved figure, right? Not even close. Mayer wasn't just disliked, he was outright feared by almost everyone who worked under him. This guy ruled Hollywood with an iron fist and ensured you knew it. First off, Mayer had this obsession with control. To him, his stars weren't just actors, they were investments, commodities he could shape and manipulate however he saw fit. He didn't care about their personal feelings or freedom. What mattered was how they contributed to MGM's image and bottom line. For example, he had strict control over his stars' personal lives. If you were under contract with MGM, you didn't just work for Mayer, you belonged to him. Got caught in a scandal? Don't worry, Mayer's team of fixers would swoop in, but not because he cared about you. It was all about protecting MGM's squeaky clean image. He'd cover up affairs, hush up DUIs, and even arrange marriages just to avoid bad press. Oh, and if you dared to step out of line or refused his orders, he'd destroy your career faster than you could say, talkies. Take Judy Garland, for example. Mayer is infamous for how he treated her. He turned her into a star, sure, but at a massive cost. She was barely a teenager when MGM signed her, and Mayer immediately started tearing her down. He told her she was too fat to be a leading lady and put her on a strict diet of black coffee, cigarettes, and diet pills. Can you imagine doing that to a kid? Mayer saw her as a product, not a person, and she paid the price for it with years of addiction and insecurity. Then there's the whole crying routine he was famous for. Mayer had this bizarre tactic where he'd pretend to cry during negotiations, hoping to guilt people into signing terrible deals. But the worst part, he could be ruthless when it came to punishing disobedience. Stars who dared to challenge him often found themselves blacklisted or trapped in their contracts, unable to work for anyone else. He'd use smear campaigns, legal threats, and anything else in his arsenal to keep his empire intact. It was like living under a dictatorship, but with better costumes. Now, don't get me wrong, Mayer was a genius in many ways. He built MGM into a powerhouse and created some of the most iconic films of all time. But behind all of that, there was a man who thrived on control, manipulation, and fear. That's why, even though he was respected for his power, Louis B. Mayer was one of the most hated figures in Hollywood's golden age. Mae West. One of the most controversial and misunderstood figures of Hollywood's golden age is definitely Mae West. She wasn't just ahead of her time, she was light years ahead, which made her a huge target. She had a sharp wit, undeniable charisma, and a no-holds-barred approach to talking about intimacy. But on the other hand, she ruffled all kinds of feathers back in the ultra-conservative 1930s. Here's the thing about Mae. She owned her sexuality, and she made no apologies for it. At a time when women were expected to be demure and ladylike, Mae came out with her double entendres, curve-hugging gowns, and a swagger that screamed confidence. Too much confidence. And for audiences? That was electrifying. People loved her. She could walk into a room and deliver a one-liner that would leave everyone in stitches or blushing. But Hollywood censors? Oh, they hated her. Mae wasn't just pushing boundaries, she was bulldozing through them. Her 1933 film, She Done Him Wrong, yes, the one that gave us the line, "Why don't you come up sometime and see me?"
Why don't you come up sometime and see me?
Was dripping with innuendo. Conservative groups were horrified, calling her films immoral and dangerous. Religious leaders preached against her, calling her the downfall of American values. She became public enemy #1 for the censors, who were scrambling to keep Hollywood clean. Then came the infamous Hays Code, a strict set of rules meant to keep movies decent. Mae's work was a big reason the code was enforced so harshly. They wanted to shut her down, and they did everything they could to make her disappear. She was blacklisted by the industry, her scripts were gutted, and her career in film was essentially derailed. But did Mae go quietly? Of course not. Mae shifted gears and took her act to Las Vegas, Broadway, and even radio, where she caused more controversy. In 1937, she appeared on a live broadcast with ventriloquist Edgar Bergen and his dummy Charlie McCarthy. Mae, being Mae, turned the innocent puppet routine into a flirtatious back and forth. It was hilarious, but it sent the prudish crowd into a frenzy. NBC received so many complaints that Mae was banned from their airwaves. Yep, banned for talking to a puppet. Here's the interesting part. While the Hollywood elite and the moral crusaders despised her, Mae knew she was making waves. She once said, "I believe in censorship. I made a fortune out of it." That's Mae West in a nutshell, turning society's outrage into a career. She wasn't just a provocateur, she was a trailblazer, proving that women could own their sexuality and still be powerful. So, yeah, Mae West was hated by censors, moralists, and the Hollywood establishment, but she didn't care. She walked away with her head held high, and a legacy that still makes people blush and laugh at the same time. Bette Davis. There's no denying her talent. She was a powerhouse actress who could light up a scene like nobody else. But if you worked with her, chances are you'd walk away either awestruck or swearing never to do it again. Bette was as famous for her feisty personality as she was for her iconic roles, and that made her a lot of enemies in Hollywood. First of all, Bette didn't take crap from anyone. Directors, studio heads, co-stars, it didn't matter who you were. If you crossed her or didn't meet her standards, she'd let you know. And not in a polite behind closed doors kind of way. She'd call you out right then and there, sometimes with a sharp comment or an icy glare that could freeze you in your tracks. To some, this was refreshing. She wasn't afraid to fight for what she wanted. But for many, it was just plain intimidating. Take her feud with Jack Warner, the head of Warner Brothers Studios. Bette wanted better scripts and better pay, but Warner saw her as just another actress under contract. When she tried to leave the studio for better opportunities, Warner blocked her at every turn, leading to a very public legal battle. Bette lost the case, but she won something more important: respect. She was one of the first stars to challenge the studio system, and while it made her a pioneer, it also made her a target for resentment. And then there was her legendary rivalry with Joan Crawford. These two couldn't stand each other, and their feud became Hollywood legend. On the set of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, they took every chance to one-up and undermine each other. Bette reportedly kicked Joan hard enough during one scene to require stitches, and Joan retaliated by wearing lead weights under her costume, making it nearly impossible for Bette to lift her in another scene. It was petty, it was dramatic, and it was everything you'd expect from two divas at the top of their game. Even her co-stars weren't spared. Actor George Brent, who worked with her on multiple films, once called her the most difficult woman in Hollywood. And Miriam Hopkins, her frequent co-star, described working with Bette as a battlefield experience. Hopkins hated her so much that she spread rumors about Bette, saying she had slept her way to the top. Bette, of course, fired back, saying Miriam was just jealous. But here's the thing, Bette wasn't difficult for the sake of being difficult. She cared deeply about her work and had a perfectionist streak a mile wide. She once said, "I will never be below the title," meaning she wouldn't settle for anything less than excellence, whether it was from herself or those around her. That kind of attitude earned her 2 Oscars and countless iconic roles, but it also made her a magnet for conflict. At the end of the day, Bette Davis didn't play by the rules, and that made her both hated and admired in equal measure. She fought tooth and nail for her career, and while she ruffled plenty of feathers along the way, she never apologized for it. Love her or hate her, you couldn't ignore her. And that's exactly how she wanted it. Bing Crosby. To fans, he was the ultimate symbol of smooth, effortless charm. His velvety voice made him a legend with songs like White Christmas, and he seemed like the epitome of the all-American family man in movies like Going My Way. But behind that squeaky clean image, there was a much darker, more complicated reality, and it was his own family who blew the whistle. For years, Bing's public persona was untouchable. He was the guy everyone wanted to invite to Christmas dinner, warm, genial, and endlessly talented. But in 1983, after his death, his eldest son, Gary Crosby, published a tell-all memoir titled Going My Own Way, and let me tell you, it shattered the illusion. According to Gary, Bing wasn't the easygoing dad America thought he was. Instead, Gary described him as a cold, authoritarian figure who ruled the household with an iron fist. One of the most shocking claims was how Bing disciplined his kids. Gary wrote that his father used a thick belt to punish them, often for minor infractions like not finishing dinner or talking back. And this wasn't just your standard strict parenting of the time, it was reportedly brutal both physically and emotionally. Gary said his dad would mock their weight, calling them fatso or bucket butt if they gained a few pounds. Imagine having Bing Crosby, of all people, the voice of calm and Christmas cheer, tearing you down like that. But Gary wasn't the only one with grievances. His brothers also backed up the claims, painting a picture of a man who was distant, demanding, and deeply flawed. Two of Bing's sons, Lindsay and Dennis, struggled with depression and substance abuse for years, and both tragically died by suicide in the late 1980s. Their deaths further fueled speculation about how much their troubled relationship with their father contributed to their struggles. Now, Bing's defenders argue that he came from a different time. He grew up in a strict Irish Catholic household himself, so some say he was just passing down what he'd learned. But let's be real. Being a product of your time doesn't excuse being cruel. Even some of Bing's closest friends admitted he had a temper and could be controlling, especially when it came to his family. The revelations were a huge blow to Bing's reputation. Fans who had adored him for decades suddenly saw him in a completely different light. It was like finding out Santa Claus had a dark side. And while some still choose to focus on his contributions to music and film, others can't overlook the pain he caused behind closed doors. So, Bing Crosby? A beloved icon on the surface, but his memory is forever complicated by the shadows his family exposed. It's a tough pill to swallow, but it's a reminder that even the brightest stars can have a darker side. Erich von Stroheim. This guy was so divisive that he literally earned the nickname "the man you love to hate," and honestly, it fit him perfectly. Stroheim was a visionary filmmaker and actor, but his colossal ego, perfectionism, and flair for the dramatic made him a nightmare for everyone who had to work with him. First, let's set the stage. Stroheim was born in Austria, and when he arrived in Hollywood, he leaned hard into this European aristocrat persona. He dressed like a nobleman, spoke with a thick accent, and even claimed to be a count. Spoiler alert, none of that was true. He was just a guy from a middle-class background who knew how to sell himself. But hey, it worked. He became famous for playing villains, the sadistic, monocle-wearing type, and he carried that larger-than-life energy into his career as a director. Now, here's the thing about Stroheim. He was brilliant. Films like Greed and Foolish Wives are considered masterpieces today, but at the time, they were infamous for their chaos behind the scenes. Stroheim demanded absolute control over every aspect of his productions. He wasn't just a perfectionist, he was obsessed. For Greed, he shot over 85 hours of footage, including an insane amount of detail no one would ever see, like gold teeth for extras who barely appeared on screen. Studio executives were tearing their hair out trying to rein him in. And then there was the money. Stroheim was notorious for blowing through budgets like they were monopoly money. Take Foolish Wives, for example. It was billed as the first million-dollar movie, but Stroheim just kept spending, adding ridiculous flourishes like recreating entire European streets for authenticity. Studio heads begged him to scale back, but he refused. For Stroheim, compromise wasn't an option. His behavior on set didn't help either. Stroheim was notoriously demanding and abrasive, treating actors and crew members like chess pieces in his grand vision. Actress Zasu Pitts, one of his regular collaborators, once described working with him as exhausting but brilliant. Others weren't so kind. If you didn't meet his expectations, he'd berate you until you did, or until you quit. Unsurprisingly, studio executives hated him. They saw Stroheim as a liability, a director who couldn't stick to a schedule or a budget. Eventually, they started editing his films without his input, cutting down his epic works into shorter, more marketable versions. This drove Stroheim insane. He considered it a betrayal of his art, and honestly, he never fully recovered from it. By the mid-1920s, his career as a director was basically over. But here's the kicker. Despite all the drama, Stroheim's films are now hailed as some of the greatest of their time. His meticulous attention to detail and his refusal to compromise are the things that made his work stand out, even if they made him impossible to work with. He may have alienated just about everyone in Hollywood, but Stroheim stayed true to his vision, for better or worse. So why was he hated? Because he was brilliant, stubborn, and unapologetically himself. even when it cost him everything. Love him or hate him, Stroheim's work as a Hollywood rebel is undeniable. Norma Shearer. While she was undeniably talented, there were rumors in Hollywood that her career success wasn't solely the result of her acting abilities, but because of her marriage to Irving Thalberg, the head of MGM Studios. Norma was often seen as the beneficiary of unfair advantages. Thalberg, known as the boy wonder of Hollywood, was one of the most powerful men in the business, and his influence helped her rise to the top. Critics and rivals claimed that Norma was handed plum roles that other actresses who were considered more talented or better suited for certain roles didn't get. The idea was that she was being favored, not because of her acting chops, but because she was Thalberg's wife. Her marriage to Thalberg certainly helped open doors, but it also fueled jealousy and resentment from other actresses who felt she didn't have to work as hard for her success. On top of that, she was often typecast as the good girl in MGM's opulent, glamorous productions, roles that critics felt were too easy and not as challenging as those given to other actresses who had to fight for their spots. The real animosity, however, came from her personal life and the perceived privilege she held within the studio. For one thing, Norma was not exactly the best at playing the parts that made her a star, like the virtuous wife or the pure-hearted love interest. Some felt she was much more suited to complex, more rebellious roles, but the studio kept her locked into these lighter, more sanitized characters. Her critics argued that she wasn't just playing it safe with her roles, but that she was being forced into them because of her connection to Thalberg. This perception of preferential treatment followed her through her career, with some claiming that she was given too much creative freedom, like the fact that she was allowed to collaborate on scripts or have a say in casting decisions, while other actresses were fighting tooth and nail to get any creative input at all. As much as Norma was beloved by her fans, the truth was that within Hollywood she often found herself at odds with many of her peers. They accused her of having it easy because of who she was married to. It's like she had this giant target on her back because she was married to one of the most powerful men in the industry, and no matter how hard she worked, some people could never let go of the idea that she had an unfair advantage. The reality might be somewhere in between. She was certainly talented, but her marriage to Thalberg certainly opened doors that others had to fight their way through. Jean Harlow. Her persona on screen was often seen as vulgar and cheap by many in the industry. Her roles frequently played on her sexuality, casting her as the dumb blonde or the seductress, which fueled the stereotype of her as nothing more than a pretty face. Critics didn't just see her as an object of desire, they saw her as a symbol of moral decline. To a conservative Hollywood elite, her overtly sexualized image and the way she embraced her sexuality were dangerous. But the harshest judgment came from her tumultuous personal life. Harlow's relationships, especially her brief, troubled marriage to MGM executive Paul Byrne, were the subject of intense public scrutiny. When Byrne died under mysterious circumstances, rumors swirled that Harlow was involved, further tarnishing her reputation. The media had a field day with her personal life, and Hollywood insiders saw her as someone who couldn't separate her public persona from her private one. The more Hollywood tried to control her image, the more it seemed to alienate her. Her critics painted her as a symbol of Hollywood's tawdry side, someone who existed only to be ogled and whose life was filled with scandal. This portrayal overshadowed the more complex woman behind the scenes. Jean Harlow was, in fact, a highly intelligent, ambitious woman who had a sharp business sense and was actively involved in her career. She was also known for being kind-hearted and generous with those around her. But none of that mattered in the public eye. The more the press sensationalized her image, the more they reduced her to the blonde bombshell trope. On top of this, Jean's fierce determination to succeed in an industry that was dominated by powerful men didn't always sit well with her male counterparts. While she was known to stand her ground and fight for her roles, many saw her as ungrateful or difficult to work with, which only added fuel to the fire. The tragic part? By the time Jean's career was peaking, She was already suffering from health problems, including kidney failure, which would eventually take her life at just 26. Her untimely death only added to her legend, but it also meant she didn't live long enough to truly redefine her image. So, while Jean Harlow was viewed by many as a symbol of Hollywood's excess and scandal, the truth is, her story was much more complicated than the image people had of her. She may have been called vulgar by critics, but in reality she was a pioneering figure in Hollywood, a woman who broke the mold in an industry that demanded conformity. Gloria Swanson. Her feud with director Cecil B. DeMille in particular became a point of tension. Swanson's work with DeMille, especially in the early days of her career, was highly successful. But she wasn't one to bow down to anyone, and as her fame grew, she became more unwilling to take orders. Her departure from DeMille's productions signified a major break, with some saying it was due to her refusal to adhere to the director's traditional ways of working. But it wasn't just her behavior on set that turned people off, it was also her sense of entitlement. Gloria was often accused of trying to control her career and public image in a way that could be seen as manipulative. As one of the biggest stars of the silent film era, she became accustomed to being treated like royalty, and she expected that same level of adoration from everyone around her, even when her star power began to wane. If you remember Baywatch of 1997, then you're surely a fan of Carmen Electra. There's beauty, grace, and talent associated with the Hollywood star, but there's more to her than most of her fans know. The question is, how did a little girl from Cincinnati become such an amazing sensation? What you'll find when you take a trip down her life and memories will certainly blow your mind. Let's start from the very beginning. How it all began. Now, this is not your typical rags to riches tale.
Ooh, I like it muy macho. Now.
It all begins in the unassuming city of Cincinnati, Ohio. She wasn't born the Carmen Electra we know her as today. No. Her name was Tara Lee Patrick. She grew up in a place where the vibe was a far cry from what Hollywood has to offer. Let's face it, at the time Cincinnati was known for a lot of things. Great chili, baseball, maybe a bit of that Midwestern charm.
Too Midwest, what the hell does that even mean?
But it's not exactly the hot spot for aspiring stars. Yet, there she was, dreaming big and dancing her heart out. From a young age, Tara had the itch to perform. Her mom was a singer, and she saw firsthand what it meant to put your soul into the art. From watching her mother, she too wanted to perform. She desired to be in the spotlight and the whole world bowing to her talent. But life wasn't always a smooth ride. It came with its own bumps and heartbreaks. Her father was a guitarist and there was music at home, but they weren't rolling in cash. That struggle, that grind shaped her into a tough cookie, ready to face whatever came her way. But here's where things get wild, because no one could have seen what happened next. By a stroke of fate, or perhaps luck, her life changed dramatically. The leap from Cincinnati to Hollywood was a dream she nurtured, but let's be real, it's like wishing to be struck by lightning. Only this time, lightning had a name: Prince. Prince was her one-way ticket to Hollywood, and here's how it all happened. She was in Los Angeles trying to make it as a dancer, doing whatever gigs came her way when she met this guy who happened to be friends with Prince. He thought she had a spark, and he set up a meeting. Now, imagine being in her shoes, fresh from Ohio, and suddenly she's face to face with Prince, the icon. He had an eye for talent and saw something in this spunky girl from Cincinnati. He decided to give her a shot, which is already mind-blowing, right? But Prince being Prince, he had to make it his own. And this is where the story gets its biggest twist. Prince didn't just want to mentor Tara, he wanted to reinvent her. He looked at her and decided that Tara Lee Patrick just wasn't going to cut it. He believed she needed a name that had more punch, more star power, so he dubbed her Carmen Electra. One day you're a dancer scraping by in LA, and the next, The legendary Prince is not only taking you under his wing, but giving you a brand new name like some kind of pop culture fairy godmother. He basically said, Tara's nice, but Carmen Electra, that is a star. And just like that, Carmen Electra was born. But Prince didn't stop there. He also signed her to his label, and they started working on an album together. It wasn't exactly a chart topper, but it was a huge leap for someone who was just dreaming of making it. For her, this was the start of a wild ride into the world of showbiz. It's like Prince opened a door to a new universe for her, and she had no idea what kind of roller coaster she was stepping onto. So, in the blink of an eye, a small-town girl with a big dream suddenly found herself in the orbit of a superstar. She went from Tara Lee Patrick to Carmen Electra with just a little nudge from one of the most enigmatic figures in music history. And that moment, meeting Prince, was like the universe hitting shuffle and landing on a track that would change her life forever. Her launch to fame. Now we get to the part that most people remember, the Baywatch years, when Carmen Electra became a full-blown, larger-than-life sensation. If you think of the 90s, there's no way you can skip over the cultural behemoth that was Baywatch. I mean, this show had it all. Slow-motion beach runs, red swimsuits, and those iconic lifeguard towers. And right there in the middle of it all was Carmen Electra. But let's rewind a bit. Before Baywatch, Carmen had already dipped her toes into the Hollywood pool. It's 1996. And Carmen is still finding her way in the entertainment world. She's already got some buzz around her thanks to her connection with Prince, but she hasn't quite reached that superstar status yet. And then she makes a bold move. She poses for Playboy. Now, this wasn't just any photo shoot, it was a full nude pictorial, and it put her right in the spotlight. At that time, posing for Playboy was a big deal. It was a statement, a way of saying, I'm here, I'm confident, and I'm not afraid to take risks. It was daring, especially for someone still trying to find her place in Hollywood. And get this, people couldn't get enough. That first shoot was such a hit that she ended up being featured in Playboy 4 more times over the years. What's wild is that these Playboy shoots did more than just put her in front of a camera. They transformed her into a pop culture symbol. It helped her get noticed in a different way, so people started paying more attention, and suddenly, she was a name you couldn't ignore. It was a strategic move that worked out big time, even if it came with its share of controversy and judgment. With all that buzz, she packed her bags and headed straight for Los Angeles, ready to take her next big leap into acting. And she didn't waste any time. She made her film debut in this quirky little indie movie called American Vampire in 1997. Now, this wasn't some blockbuster hit, but it was the perfect chance for her to test out her acting chops and start showing Hollywood she was more than just a pretty face in a magazine. But in that same year, little did she know she was about to take a gig that would truly make her famous, Baywatch. In 1997, the show is already a massive global hit, watched by millions around the world. So, when Carmen joined the cast as Lonnie McKenzie, it was like the universe handed her a rocket ship to fame. This was no ordinary TV role. Baywatch was basically the Game of Thrones of its time, but with more bikinis and beach rescues. Her job wasn't just about looking good on the beach, though that was a big part of the allure. Her role was about embodying a kind of glamorous, sun-soaked fantasy. She had the look, the confidence, and that unmistakable energy that made her an instant standout on the show. When she ran down that beach, all eyes were on her. And yeah, there were a lot of slow-motion shots that made sure of that. And let's talk about the cultural impact here. Carmen's time on Baywatch turned her into an icon, not just in America, but around the world. It's wild to think about, but Baywatch was syndicated in over 140 countries. That meant that in places as far away as Germany, Brazil, and Japan, people knew her face. She was suddenly part of that very small club of stars whose image was recognizable anywhere on the planet. Being a Baywatch lifeguard wasn't just a TV role. It was a passport to global stardom. Carmen became a staple of that 90s fantasy. Sun, sand, and saving the day, all with perfect hair and a smile. But here's the part that most people don't know, what it took to maintain that image behind the scenes. It's easy to look at those episodes and think, she's living the dream. And sure, she was in some ways. But Hollywood is tough, and the pressure to stay perfect under the spotlight is no joke. Imagine being in a role where millions of people scrutinize how you look in every single episode. Any slight change in appearance would spark rumors and tabloid stories. The constant pressure to stay fit, to keep up with the demands of being a sex symbol. It's like being on a treadmill that never slows down. She's opened up about how that pressure affected her, how she constantly felt like she had to live up to this superhuman version of herself that everyone saw on TV. It's a different kind of tough, where you have to keep smiling and keep that upbeat vibe even when things are chaotic behind the scenes. And let's not forget, the 90s Hollywood scene could be brutal for women. The expectations were intense, and there wasn't much room for mistakes or even just being human. Yet, Carmen managed to turn those challenges into a kind of superpower. She knew what people expected from her, and she leaned into it, turning herself into this untouchable Baywatch bombshell. She made it look easy, even when it wasn't, and that's what made her such a captivating figure. But as there were highs in her life, so were there a lot of lows. The hefty challenges. This part of Carmen Electra's story is where things get really heavy. Fame, magazine covers, red carpets, none of that could prepare her for what life threw her way in 1998. It's the kind of tragedy that changes a person forever. Within the span of just 2 weeks, she lost both her mother and her sister. Her mother, Patricia, passed away from a brain tumor, and right after that, her sister Debbie died of a heart attack. It was like the ground had been ripped out from under her, and everything she knew and loved disappeared almost overnight. Imagine the heartbreak of losing the two people who know you best, who've been with you through every up and down. And it didn't just happen quietly behind the scenes. This was a time when Carmen was still very much in the public eye. She was known for her bubbly, carefree persona, but inside she was dealing with the kind of pain that would bring most of us to our knees. Grieving is hard enough on its own, but when you're in the spotlight, it's like you're expected to keep up appearances, to smile for the cameras when all you want to do is hide away and scream. Carmen herself has talked about how incredibly tough it was. She felt lost, alone, and like her world had just crumbled to pieces. But here's where her story gets even more real. She didn't just let that grief swallow her whole. She had moments of breaking down, of course, but she somehow found the strength to keep going. It's like she channeled all of that pain into this incredible inner resilience. She said in interviews that she had to learn how to let herself feel that grief instead of pretending it wasn't there. And as heartbreaking as it was, it made her realize just how strong she really was. For a while, work became her way of coping. She threw herself into her projects, into staying busy. But as anyone who's been through loss knows, that grief doesn't just disappear because you distract yourself. She had to go through the painful process of accepting what had happened, of figuring out who she was without her mother and sister in her life. What's incredible is that even in her most vulnerable moments, Carmen managed to turn her pain into a kind of strength. She became open about her loss, talking about it in interviews and sharing her story with fans. It was her way of connecting with people on a deeper level, and over time she started to bounce back. Not in a way that erased the pain, but in a way that honored it. It was like she took all that hurt and used it to build herself up again, piece by piece. She found ways to bring more positivity into her life, focusing on projects that made her happy and finding a sense of purpose beyond her roles on TV and in movies. It didn't happen overnight. Grief never really goes away. But she discovered that she had the strength to keep moving forward, to keep living fully, even when things felt impossible. The reinvention. Let's talk about one of the coolest parts of Carmen Electra's story, her ability to constantly reinvent herself. Carmen didn't just settle into one niche. She kept evolving, proving that she was way more than just a Baywatch babe. This is where we see her becoming a true icon of the 90s, the 2000s, and even today. First up, her MTV phase. After the Baywatch years, she jumped into hosting Singled Out, one of those gloriously over-the-top dating shows that only MTV could pull off in the 90s. This show was loud, ridiculous, and full of wild energy, and Carmen fit right in. She brought her own charm to the screen, making her the perfect match for the show's vibe. Plus, let's be honest, this era was peak MTV, with all the wild spring break specials, music videos, and celeb gossip. Carmen became the face of that scene, the girl who always knew where the party was, who could bring the fun and keep the energy high. It was a different kind of fame, but it was the kind that made her a household name for a whole new set of fans. But here's where things get really interesting. When the reality TV craze hit in the 2000s, Carmen wasn't afraid to dive in. She wasn't content with just being remembered as a 90s icon. She was ready to evolve again. That's when we saw her on The Surreal Life, a reality show that was like a big, strange cocktail of past-their-prime celebrities living together under one roof. And she didn't just show up and blend in. She embraced the chaos, had fun with it, and didn't take herself too seriously. She let her quirky, down-to-earth side show, and people loved it. It was like, hey, she's one of us. She's not afraid to make fun of herself or roll with the punches. And it wasn't just The Surreal Life. Carmen dabbled in all kinds of unexpected ventures that showed she was more than just a pretty face. She got into dancing and burlesque, bringing a little glam and sass to shows like the Pussycat Dolls. Think feathers, glitzy costumes, and some seriously bold moves. She wasn't afraid to take risks and try new things, even if it meant stepping outside of what people expected from her. And let's not forget those workout videos. Yes, Carmen Electra's aerobic striptease was a thing. And honestly, it's kind of genius. It's a mix of fitness and a little bit of cheeky fun, and it showed that she knew her audience. It was a playful twist on the whole exercise video craze, with a little bit of her own flavor thrown in. I mean, who else could make a workout routine feel like a dance party? But what really stands out about Carmen is how she's managed to keep her sense of humor through all of it. She's in on the joke. She knows the world remembers her for those iconic slow-motion beach runs, but she's also okay with laughing about it. She hasn't shied away from her past or tried to reinvent herself into something totally different. Instead, she's taken what people love about her and added new layers, embracing the weird twists of her career while staying true to who she is. Carmen's never really gone away. She's always found a way to stay in the mix, whether it's through a reality show, a fun throwback cameo, or just showing up on social media with that same carefree attitude. It's that ability to adapt and keep things light that has kept her around in a world where fame can be pretty fleeting. She's not just a nostalgia trip. She's someone who has rolled with every unexpected turn, made the best of it, and kept things interesting. And honestly, that's the kind of staying power that's hard to come by. More than a Hollywood symbol. Now for the wilder, more unexpected side of Carmen Electra's life, the stuff that goes beyond just being a sex symbol and pop culture icon. Sure, the world can't get enough of her stunning looks and that larger-than-life persona, but there's so much more to her than that. Take her charitable work, for example. Behind the glamorous exterior, Carmen has a huge heart. She's thrown her energy into causes that are close to her, like Head to Hollywood, a non-profit that supports brain tumor survivors. It makes sense, right? Remember, she went through the pain of losing her mom to a brain tumor, so she's out here trying to make life a little brighter for others going through something similar. And it doesn't stop there. She's also worked with Elevate Hope, which focuses on helping abused and abandoned kids, and the Hollyrod Foundation, providing support to those dealing with life-changing conditions like Parkinson's. It's like she's channeling all that empathy she's gathered from her own struggles into making a difference. Now, let's talk about some of the more offbeat moments in her career. Because with Carmen, there are plenty. Did you know she was a comic book model? Yep. She graced the covers of Razor and Ladies of London Night, showing that she was just as much a star in the world of graphic novels as she was on TV. And in the late 90s, she was the face of Max Factor, turning up in TV and print ads with that perfect camera-ready glow. She even became a spokesperson for men's hair color with Maxim, just another way she kept popping up in places you wouldn't expect. But here's where it gets really wild. In 2002, an extinct species of fly was named after her, Carmen Electra Shechisme. Why? Because of her splendid somal structure. Yes, you heard that right. And if you thought that was out there, just wait. Carmen also dipped into the world of wrestling, creating the Naked Women's Wrestling League in 2005, where she took on the role of commissioner. It was exactly what it sounds like. Part wrestling, part spectacle, and totally out of left field. But that's Carmen, always game to shake things up and try something new. Around the same time, she was the face of Ritz Camera Centers and even showed up in Taco Bell commercials.
Do you like my dress?
That'll do.
It's true. Taco Bell's big, tasty grilled stuffed burrito with double.
Basically, she was everywhere, always finding new ways to keep her name and face out there. Now, when you jump ahead to 2010, Carmen was still surprising people. She released a line of romance toys, which is honestly pretty on-brand for someone who's never been shy about embracing her sultry side. To promote them, she even appeared on the reality show The Spin Crowd, getting some PR magic to help bring her products to the spotlight. It was another example of her willingness to go wherever her interests and the business took her. But fame isn't always smooth sailing, right? Things were about to take a dramatic turn for her. In 2019, Carmen found herself in a legal battle when a strip club in Massachusetts, the Golden Banana, used her likeness on social media without her permission. She wasn't about to let that slide and joined forces with other celebs in taking legal action. It's a reminder that even after all these years, she's not one to back down when it comes to protecting her image. And then in 2020, she became a huge part of the cultural conversation again, thanks to The Last Dance, the docuseries about the Chicago Bulls. People were buzzing about her stories of her whirlwind romance with Dennis Rodman, which gave everyone a juicy look into their wild, unpredictable relationship. And get this, after her appearance on the show, searches for her name on a certain adult website skyrocketed to 1.7 million. Talk about staying relevant. And if you thought she'd slow down after that, think again. In 2022, Carmen took control of her own image in a brand new way by launching an OnlyFans account. For her, it wasn't just about the money or the buzz, it was about finally being able to call the shots and share her own creative vision. As she put it, I, for once, have this opportunity to be my own boss and have my own creative vision to share with my fans without someone standing over me. It's like a full circle moment, taking back ownership of her image after all those years of being seen through the lens of others. So, from charity work to comic books, from quirky business ventures to internet buzz, Carmen's story is one of constant reinvention. She's always finding new ways to surprise us, never content to be just one thing. That's what makes her so fascinating. She's always evolving, always finding a new way to remind the world that she's still here, still doing things her own way.
On the 30th of March 1939, at the bustling premiere of Maisie in Los Angeles, a star named Ann Sothern captivated the silver screen, embodying the vivacious and witty character that would define her legacy. Unknown to the glittering crowds and even to Sothern herself, this role would etch her name into the annals of Hollywood's golden age, yet also cast a shadow over her diverse talents and contributions. As Sothern's Maisie charmed audiences nationwide, a complex narrative unfolded off-screen, one of ambition, resilience, and the untold struggles within the gilded cages of Hollywood. This story, much like a cipher hidden in plain sight, reveals the intricate layers of an actress navigating the highs and lows of fame, battling the industry's typecasting and gender biases, all while leaving a mark subtly obscured by time. Through the lens of her career, we delve into a journey not just of a forgotten luminary, but of Hollywood itself, exploring the enigmatic legacy of Ann Sothern, whose brilliance on and off the camera remains a testament to her undervalued impact on the cinematic world. The Untold Beginning. In the brisk winter of 1909, the small town of Valley City, North Dakota became the birthplace of a future star, Harriet Arlene Lake, known to the world as Ann Sothern. Born into a family where music and the arts were the lifeblood, her mother, Annette Wide Lake, a concert singer, and her father, Walter J. Lake, a pianist, the stage was set for Ann's entrance into the world of entertainment from her earliest days. The journey from Valley City to the glowing marquees of Hollywood was marked by a series of pivotal moments and encounters that shaped Sothern's early career. In the mid-1920s, the Lake family relocated to Minneapolis, where Ann's passion for acting took root. By the tender age of 16, Ann was already performing in local theater productions, demonstrating a natural talent that could not be ignored. The year 1927 marked a significant turning point when Anne and her mother made the bold decision to move to California. The allure of Hollywood's burgeoning film industry was irresistible, and for a young actress like Anne, it promised the fulfillment of her dreams. Yet the reality of Hollywood in the late 1920s was far from the glamorous ideal portrayed in fan magazines and on the silver screen. It was a place of fierce competition, where countless hopefuls vied for a chance to shine. Anne's early years in Hollywood were fraught with challenges. She found work where she could, taking on bit parts in films like Broadway Nights, 1927, and enduring the hardships of the Great Depression. The industry was in flux, transitioning from silent films to talkies, a shift that spelled the end of many careers. Undeterred, Anne honed her craft, studying at the Pasadena Playhouse and taking on various stage roles, all the while waiting for her breakthrough moment. That moment came in the early 1930s, though not without its trials. Anne's initial contract with Columbia Pictures ended after a year with little to show for it. However, her persistence paid off when she caught the eye of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer MGM scouts, leading to a contract with one of Hollywood's most prestigious studios. It was under MGM's banner that Anne Southern would find her niche, not as a glamorous leading lady, but as the vivacious, quick-witted Maisie Ravier, a role that would define her career. The Maisie series, which began with Maisie, 1939, catapulted Anne to fame. Her portrayal of the smart, independent, and resourceful title character resonated with audiences, offering a blend of humor and heart that was both refreshing and relatable. The success of Maisie led to 9 sequels, securing Anne Southern's place in Hollywood's pantheon of stars. Yet the path to stardom was not solely defined by her on-screen achievements. Behind the scenes, Anne navigated the complexities of studio politics, the fickleness of public adoration, and the personal sacrifices required by her profession. Her journey from the stages of Minneapolis to the silver screen of Hollywood is a testament to her resilience, talent, and unwavering determination to succeed against the odds. Anne Southern's early years, marked by both struggle and triumph, laid the foundation for a career that would span over 6 decades. In those formative moments, a star was born, one whose legacy would endure long beyond her final curtain call. The Maisie controversy. In 1939, MGM introduced audiences to Maisie Ravier, a savvy and spirited showgirl with a heart of gold, portrayed with charismatic aplomb by Anne Southern. The film Maisie was not just a hit. It spawned a series of 10 movies produced until 1947, transforming Southern from a talented actress into a household name. Yet, as the series progressed, it became a double-edged sword, both elevating and entrapping Southern within a specific persona. The character of Maisie, while beloved for her wit and resilience, became a gilded cage for Southern. The actress, whose range extended far beyond the lighthearted comedy of the Maisie series, found herself battling against the typecasting that often accompanies a recurring role. Despite her success, Southern's artistic ambitions chafed under the constraints of repeating the same character, yearning for roles that could showcase the breadth of her talent. The internal conflicts at MGM regarding the direction of the Maisie series further complicated matters. Southern frequently found herself at odds with studio executives and writers over the development of her character. She pushed for storylines that would allow Maisie to evolve, seeking depth and variety in her roles that the formulaic approach of the series seldom offered. These creative disputes highlighted the tension between the studio's commercial interests and the artistic aspirations of its contracted talent. Notable figures within MGM, including producer J. Walter Rubin, who directed the first Maisie film, initially supported Southern's vision for the character. However, Rubin's untimely death in 1942 and the studio's prioritization of consistency over creativity left Southern navigating the series' future with less support. The struggle for creative control was emblematic of a broader issue within the studio system, where actors, despite their contributions to a film's success, had limited influence over their career's trajectory. As World War II raged and the American public sought escapism in cinema, the Maisie series continued to be a profitable venture for MGM, reinforcing the studio's reluctance to alter a successful formula. Despite this, Southern's performances never waned in quality. She infused each portrayal of Maisie with freshness and vitality, a testament to her professionalism and commitment to her craft. The end of the Maisie series in 1947 did not mark the end of Southern's struggle with typecasting, but it did close a chapter on a part of her career that was both defining and restrictive. In the years that followed, Southern sought out diverse roles in film and television, demonstrating her versatility as an actress. Yet, the shadow of Maisie Ravier lingered, a reminder of the complexities of Hollywood stardom and the personal costs of professional success. Hollywood's double standards? The glimmering facade of Hollywood's golden age often masked the stark realities of its double standards, particularly when it came to gender. For actresses like Ann Sothern, navigating this landscape meant contending with an industry that celebrated femininity on screen while simultaneously constraining the roles women could play, both on and off the set. As Sothern's career progressed through the 1930s and 1940s, she, like many of her contemporaries, found herself caught in a paradox. On one hand, her roles in films and the Maisie series showcased strong, independent women who could hold their own against any adversity. On the other, the very industry that provided these roles imposed rigid expectations on actresses, dictating not just the characters they played but also their public and private lives. The era was marked by the enforcement of the Motion Picture Production Code, colloquially known as the Hays Code, which sought to regulate content deemed morally questionable. While it impacted all aspects of film production, the code also reinforced traditional gender roles and limited the depiction of women's independence and sexuality, affecting the types of roles available to actresses. Beyond the screen, the studio system exerted control over actresses' images, often requiring them to conform to idealized standards of beauty and comportment. Contracts could include clauses that dictated personal choices, from dating to weight management, reflecting broader societal expectations of women. These constraints were emblematic of the double standards that permeated the industry, celebrating the allure of Hollywood's leading ladies while tightly controlling their autonomy. Ann Sothern's experiences reflect these contradictions. Despite her success and popularity, she too was subject to the whims of studio executives and the limitations imposed by the era's gender norms. Yet through her performances, Sothern subtly challenged these conventions, bringing complexity and strength to her roles that resonated with audiences and hinted at a broader spectrum of female experience than Hollywood was often willing to acknowledge. The double standards of Hollywood's golden age offer a window into the complexities of gender, power, and representation in an era that shaped modern cinema. As we look back on this period through the lens of contemporary understanding, the stories of actresses like Ann Sothern gain new dimensions, highlighting not just the challenges they faced, but also their contributions to the evolving landscape of film and culture. The Secret Loves. In the whirlwind of Hollywood's golden age, where the personal often intertwined with the public, Ann Sothern's romantic life unfolded beneath the studio's watchful eye. Her marriages, notably to Roger Pryor in 1936 and Robert Sterling in 1943, were not just personal milestones, but events that mirrored the complexities and expectations of a star under the studio system's glare. Ann's first marriage to Roger Pryor, a fellow actor, became a subject of public fascination. The couple married on September 18, 1936, in a ceremony that, while glamorous, hinted at the pressures they faced under the Hollywood spotlight. Their union, celebrated in the press, also underscored the challenges of maintaining a relationship when both partners were in the demanding world of show business. Despite their efforts, the marriage succumbed to these pressures, ending in divorce in 1943. Almost immediately following her divorce from Pryor, Sothern married Robert Sterling, another actor whose career was on the rise. Their marriage on May 23, 1943, was seen as a fresh start for Sothern, who sought stability and happiness away from the film set's demands. Yet this relationship, too, was subject to the strains inherent in Hollywood marriages. The couple welcomed a daughter, Tisha Sterling, in 1944, which brought joy to their lives, but also new challenges. The marriage ultimately ended in divorce in 1949, leaving Sothern to navigate the complexities of life as a single mother and leading lady. Beyond her marriages, rumors of Sothern's relationships and associations filled the gossip columns. Her close friendships within the industry with figures such as Lucille Ball and Desi Arnaz provided fodder for the press, highlighting the blurred lines between personal affiliations and public perceptions in Hollywood's tightly knit community.
Southern's romantic life, though marked by its highs and lows, was characterized by a resilience and independence that mirrored her on-screen personas. Despite the studio system's attempts to manage its stars' images, Southern navigated her personal life with a level of discretion that allowed her to maintain a degree of privacy, a rare feat in an era where stars' lives were open books. Her experiences reflect the broader narrative of women in Hollywood during the mid-20th century who balanced their careers, personal desires, and the industry's expectations. Southern's journey through love, heartbreak, and motherhood offers a window into the realities behind the glamour, revealing a woman who, despite the public's gaze, sought to carve out her own path in love and in life. Blacklisting fears. The late 1940s and 1950s were tumultuous times for Hollywood. The HUAC, established to investigate alleged disloyalty and subversive activities on the part of private citizens, public employees, and those organizations suspected of having communist ties, turned its eye toward Hollywood in 1947. The entertainment industry, known for its liberal leanings and high-profile personalities, became a focal point for accusations of communist infiltration. Ann Southern, whose career was at its peak during this period, found herself in an industry rife with fear and suspicion. While Southern herself was not called before the HUAC, nor was she blacklisted, the atmosphere of the era inevitably affected all who worked in Hollywood. The blacklist, a result of the hearings, led to the shunning of actors, writers, directors, and others accused of communist affiliations, many of whom were blacklisted based on rumors or associations rather than concrete evidence. During this time, Southern continued her work in both film and television, including starring in The Ann Southern Show, which ran from 1958 to 1961. However, the climate of fear and the industry's self-censorship meant that topics that were deemed controversial or too politically charged were avoided. This environment limited the scope of creative expression and the types of roles available, even for those not directly implicated by the HUAC hearings. Notable figures during this era, such as screenwriter Dalton Trumbo and actor Charlie Chaplin, faced significant professional and personal repercussions due to their alleged communist ties or leftist sympathies. Trumbo was one of the Hollywood 10, a group of writers and directors who were jailed and blacklisted for their refusal to answer the HUAC's inquiries regarding their political affiliations. The impact of the Red Scare on Hollywood was profound, creating an environment where suspicion prevailed over creativity, and careers were often collateral damage in the fight against perceived communist influence. For actors like Ann Southern, navigating this landscape required caution and resilience, as the implications of being associated with blacklisted individuals or ideologies could be career-ending. The Forgotten Pioneer. Ann Southern's career trajectory took a pioneering turn when she transitioned from film to television, a move that was both innovative and risky at the time. In the early 1950s, television was still an emerging medium, often looked down upon by Hollywood's film elite. Southern, however, saw an opportunity. In 1953, she starred in Private Secretary, a television series that ran until 1957. The show was a success, showcasing Southern's comedic timing and charm to a new audience and proving that television could offer substantial roles for film actors. What is less known about Ann Southern's venture into television is her role as a producer. The Ann Southern Show, which aired from 1958 to 1961, was not just a vehicle for her acting talents. Southern also took on an active role in its production. This was at a time when female producers were a rarity in Hollywood. Her involvement in the production aspects of the show marked her as one of the first women in television to take on such a role, paving the way for future generations of female producers and directors in the industry. Southern's pioneering work extended beyond her on-screen roles and production work. She was also instrumental in negotiating the rights and syndication deals for her television shows, demonstrating an understanding of the business side of entertainment that was ahead of her time. Her foresight and negotiations ensured that The Ann Southern Show and Private Secretary would be enjoyed by audiences for years to come through reruns and syndication, a concept that was still in its infancy in the 1950s. Despite these significant contributions, Ann Southern's role as a pioneer in the television industry is often overshadowed by her film career and her portrayal of Maisie. Yet, her work in television, both in front of and behind the camera, highlights her versatility, foresight, and willingness to embrace new challenges. Ann Sothern's pioneering efforts in the television industry are a testament to her innovative spirit and her significant yet often overlooked contributions to the medium's development. Her work laid the groundwork for future actors and producers, demonstrating the potential of television as a platform for creative expression and business acumen. The final act, a legacy in shadows. As the golden era of Hollywood cinema began to wane, Ann Sothern's career entered what could be considered its final act. By the 1960s, the landscape of the entertainment industry had shifted dramatically, with television becoming a dominant force and the studio system that had once ruled supreme undergoing significant changes. During this period, Sothern's work transitioned more towards television, including a notable role in The Ann Sothern Show, 1958-1961, which solidified her place in the pantheon of television stars. However, it was her return to film in the 1980s that marked a poignant moment in Sothern's career. In 1987, she received critical acclaim for her role in The Whales of August, a film that featured screen legends Bette Davis and Lillian Gish. Sothern's performance in this film at the age of 78 showcased her enduring talent and versatility as an actress. Despite the accolades, including an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress, this late-career resurgence did not fully rekindle the widespread recognition one might have expected for such a storied career. Sothern's legacy, particularly in the later years of her life, is reflective of the broader narrative of many Golden Age Hollywood actors whose contributions have faded into the background of popular cultural memory. Her work, spanning over 5 decades, contributed significantly to both film and television, yet the full extent of her impact is often overlooked in retrospectives of the era. Ann Sothern passed away on March 15, 2001, in Ketchum, Idaho, leaving behind a body of work that spans a critical period in American entertainment history. Her journey from the stages of North Dakota to the silver screen of Hollywood and onto the television sets of America's living rooms is a testament to her adaptability, talent, and perseverance. While Sothern's name may not be as readily recognized today as some of her contemporaries, her legacy endures through her contributions to the evolution of acting in film and television. Her pioneering work in television production, her memorable performances across multiple decades, and her ability to navigate the changing tides of the entertainment industry mark her as a significant figure in Hollywood history. One thing is true, the stars of the Golden Age knew how to have a good time. They were known for hosting some of the most famous parties of the era, with some of the top people in society in attendance. You could be sure to see all kinds of things at such parties, from overflowing booze to vices. While all of these are normal at parties, some of these Golden Age parties went too far and even made it into the news because of how scandalous they were. From the rumored orgies at Jane Mansfield's mansion to Fatty Arbuckle's deadly party, these 10 scandalous parties that took place in the Golden Age still shock people to this day. The Roaring Twenties Party. In the mid-1950s, America's power couple, Eddie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds, decided to host a party in their backyard. But this was not just any party. It was one that got people talking for a while. A good number of Hollywood couples threw parties in their homes during the Golden Age, but Eddie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds' 1955 party was said to be unforgettable. At the time, Eddie Fisher was known for his smooth and romantic chart-topping hits, while Debbie Reynolds, who was clearly smitten by the singer, was making waves as an actress. They both were at the peak of their careers in the 50s, and they were determined to keep working towards their goals. But every now and then, the couple loved to unwind and have fun by partying. Achieving such great things and getting famous in their 20s left them feeling fulfilled, and what better way to celebrate than to organize a party-themed Roaring Twenties. They wanted to enjoy their youth along with friends, and that was exactly what they did. They decided to transform their garage into a playroom as they set out to host one of the most exclusive parties in town. They invited some young stars like Tab Hunter, the poster boy for Teenage Dreams, and Leon Tyre, the charming actor. When the party began, everything seemed innocent, and the atmosphere was electric with the promise of a night to remember. But soon enough, it became obvious that this was not a regular party. It was a party where seemingly innocent young stars came ready to unleash their wild side. The party gave them permission to shed their public personas and reveal a wild side hidden from the prying eyes of the paparazzi.
It was said that the party was not one for innocent eyes, as subtle glances turned into lingering touches, and the stars allegedly consumed all kinds of substances. From the pictures that circulated after the party, one could see that they all let loose and partied with reckless abandon. Most of the stars there were busy exploring their raw, untamed passion, and no one was left out of the fun. Only the people who attended the party truly know what happened that night, but rumors circulated that it was a bit too wild. No one expected it to turn out that way, especially because Debbie Reynolds and Eddie were known to have a wholesome image. MGM's dark 1937 party. The MGM's Grand Party in 1937 was an event that a lot of people enjoyed, but for one actress, Patricia Douglas, it turned into a night she desperately wanted to erase. According to reports, the party was organized in Los Angeles in honor of MGM's top salesman. There were already rumors about the strange things that the top men in the studio did behind closed doors, but not many people knew the extent of it. Before the party began, the studio brought the salesman in by train from different parts of the country, and it looked like it was going to be the most glamorous party of the year. The event was extravagant, with star-studded meet and greets, marching bands to lead the way, and even a fleet of motorcycle cops providing a grand entrance. There was a private rail car brimming with promise, booze, and lively conversations. To commence the ceremony, which was to take place at the famous Ambassador Hotel, MGM's Louis B. Mayer stepped on stage and gave a speech. But it was after the ceremony that the convention's grandeur took a dark twist. The centerpiece was a lavish party with the comedic brilliance of Laurel and Hardy and the mesmerizing Dandridge sisters. And there was an open bar, ensuring that spirits were as high as the Hollywood Hills. Yet, amid all the dazzle, Patricia Douglas, a dancer and movie extra, found herself in a nightmarish situation. She was one of 120 young women told they were destined for an on-location film shoot that evening. However, once they arrived, they realized they were trapped in an event with a sinister underbelly. It was said that the party was not a normal party, but a stag party. Several strange acts were rumored to have taken place on that night, but one of the most shocking was what happened to the young actress Patricia Douglas. As the night wore on, Douglas, amid the glitz and glamour, was allegedly targeted by a drunken salesman who not only forced her to consume alcohol, but also took alleged advantage of her. Never in her lifetime would she have thought that someone would do such a thing to her. She was devastated and shocked, but Patricia was not one to stay silent. She raised her voice and spoke out about what happened to her. She explained every detail, hoping to get justice. Unfortunately, the court was not exactly in her favor, not because she was lying, but because MGM allegedly made the story disappear. MGM didn't want the world to know that one of their best salesmen took advantage of an underage girl at a party they organized. This kind of scandal would have tarnished the image of the studio forever, so they used their influence to make the scandal disappear. Jane Mansfield's Wild Mansion Party. Mansfield was a Hollywood star who defined the word wild. She was known for her fearless embrace of sensuality and glamour. Her figure-hugging outfits, her trademark blonde bombshell hair, and her smile were the weapons in her arsenal. She made sure the cameras loved her, and they sure did. But the wildness didn't stop at her looks. Jane was a party animal, and her Hollywood Hills mansion was the backdrop for some of the wildest soirees that ever graced the hills. If you want to have an idea of what her parties looked like, picture a mansion in the Hollywood Hills with the stars twinkling overhead and the poolside lit up like a movie set. This was the setting for one of Jane Mansfield's notorious house parties, a place where the word excess took on a whole new meaning. Excessive drinking, late-night revelry, and perhaps more were part of the package. There are rumors that these soirees weren't just about clinking glasses and polite chit-chat. The night would often take on a more uninhibited vibe, with guests participating in some, let's say, risque activities. There were rumors that her guests got involved in orgies during these parties. Some people even said she taped these acts for her guests. Yet it wasn't just about the parties. Jane Mansfield was also known for her infamous affairs with some of the biggest names of the time, including Robert Kennedy and his brother John F. Kennedy. And it's safe to say that both Kennedys seemed to have a thing for the blonde bombshell. What happened behind the closed doors of Jane Mansfield's house remains veiled in the allure of an era when stars lived larger than life. The Las Vegas Wild Party. Although the stars of old Hollywood partied a lot, these parties were mostly private and exclusive. Most times, only the stars in attendance witnessed firsthand what really happened in these parties. However, some of these parties made it to the tabloids because of the rumors that circulated about them. One of these parties was a 1950 Las Vegas party that played host to Montgomery Clift and an array of luminaries. On this particular night, a lavish party was about to unfold within the hallowed walls of a nightclub. The club was said to have imported several Hollywood stars for the party, which started off as a banquet. As the clock struck midnight, a parade of Hollywood's most illustrious names descended upon the club. Among the stars, the charismatic Desi Arnaz, the enchanting Lucille Ball, and the alluring Marlene Dietrich took center stage. The party started with a fancy dinner, but as the hours ticked by, things got wild. Photographs captured by the flashbulbs of the era's paparazzi showed a glimpse of the spectacle unfolding behind the club's closed doors. Rows of champagne glasses glistened in the dimly lit room, and laughter and chatter filled the air. But it was what remained hidden from those photos that ignited the most scandalous rumors. While it looked like the party was a casual get-together, these Hollywood stars wanted to do more than just meeting and sipping champagne. They wanted to let loose and do things that they would never be caught doing in public. Behind the scenes, there was a lot going on. Rumors started to spread about this party. People said there was lots of drinking and even some drug use. Even the stars that were known to be reserved and laid back unleashed another side. The club made room for these Hollywood stars to do whatever they wanted. There were no restrictions, but they did all these with the understanding that whatever happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. From every indication, the party turned into something wilder than anyone expected. The stars, known for their perfect public images, took off their masks, let loose, and did things that were a bit scandalous. Errol Flynn's weird parties. Because of how wild and wayward Errol Flynn was as a child, his own mother had a hard time coping with him. As a result of this, their relationship was rocky, and she even referred to him as the devil for some weird reason. Interestingly, Errol grew up to become an adventurous man who did not live by the rules, and he became a party animal too. While his career was thriving, the actor was hosting all kinds of parties in his mansion, and most of these parties were scandalous. Almost every week, he came together with the likes of Clark Gable, David Niven, and Olivia de Havilland to party. It was alleged that some of these stars even enjoyed watching the wild animals at the back of Flynn's house. It was said that his mansion was a sprawling Spanish-style abode with hidden alcoves and secret passageways. It's the perfect setting for a night of revelry. Now it's said that the drinks flowed freely at Flynn's parties, and it wasn't just your run-of-the-mill cocktails. We're talking about top-shelf liquor and champagne that never seemed to run out. The laughter and the clinking of glasses were only rivaled by the sound of jazz music filling the air. As the night went on, the parties took on a life of their own. Flynn, known for his charm and charisma, was at the center of it all, regaling guests with stories of his adventures. But it wasn't just about conversation. His parties were rumored to have been wild, with guests dancing with abandon and whispers of romantic escapades in hidden corners of the mansion. But it was said that most of the guests who attended his parties preferred not to talk about what happened behind closed doors. It was almost like he turned his house into a place where his co-stars came and did wild things, things they wouldn't dare to do on camera. Hedda Hopper's unforgettable birthday bash. You've probably heard of some wild Hollywood parties, but this one was next level. Hedda Hopper was a prominent American gossip columnist and actress known for her influential role in the world of Hollywood journalism. The star-studded guest list read the likes of Judy Garland and Clark Gable, two icons in their own right, walking through the door. You can imagine the paparazzi bulbs popping like crazy, capturing every moment of what was shaping up to be a legendary night. The setting was as lavish as they come. We're talking about decorations that could rival the grandeur of a blockbuster film set. The champagne was excess, and there was an air of decadence hanging heavy in the room. However, the party wasn't just about mingling and sipping bubbly. It was rumored that the drinks were more than just cocktails. They were a one-way ticket to the wildest stories you'd ever hear. The excessive drinking was almost a given, and the night seemed to unravel into one for the Hollywood history books. The details of what exactly went down have been hushed over the years, reminding us that sometimes what happens in Hollywood stays tantalizingly behind closed doors. Joan Crawford's 1951 party. Let's step back in time to 1951 when the glamour of Hollywood was in full swing. A party to remember was in the works, and the star of the show, none other than Joan Crawford herself. The party took place at Stork Club, New York, but it was not your regular party. The Stork Club in Hollywood is a name that resonates with late-night revelry and the kind of extravagance that only old Hollywood could conjure. This was the place where Frank Sinatra crooned, Marilyn Monroe dazzled, and Humphrey Bogart owned the night. But that fateful night, Joan Crawford was the star of the night. Joan Crawford was known for being one of the most prominent and versatile actresses in the golden age of Hollywood. She was celebrated for her remarkable career, spanning several decades, and was renowned for her roles in films like Mildred Pierce, Possessed, and The Woman. The actress was also said to be a free spirit. When it came to partying, she did whatever she pleased. So on that starry night, Joan Crawford arrived at the Stork Club in grand style, ready to let loose and paint the town red. Rumor had it that the party took a wild turn. The party may have looked like an innocent gathering on the surface, but it was nothing close to innocent behind closed doors. After the party, photographs from the party began to circulate like wildfire and showcased Joan, the epitome of Hollywood elegance, letting her hair down, indulging in vices, and having the time of her life. It was a party where some glamorous stars had their moments of wild abandon. Sophia Loren's Los Angeles party. It was the year 1957, and Sophia Loren was throwing a party that was about to go down in Hollywood's history. If you've ever seen that iconic snapshot of Sophia eyeing Jane Mansfield's daring cleavage, well, that's just a sneak peek of what was in store that fateful night. The Paramount Pictures lot was buzzing with anticipation, all for the lady of the hour, Sophia Loren. You see, this wasn't your average soiree. This was an ode to glamour, star power, and a touch of wildness. Hollywood bombshells and the creme de la creme of Tinseltown's leading men were in attendance. The guest list read like a Hollywood Walk of Fame. But it wasn't just the people in attendance that caught people's attention. It was the things that they indulged in. If there was a queen of wild parties, it would be her. And guess what? She was there, right by Sophia's side. You just knew this night was about to take a walk on the wild side. The pictures from the party showed that Jane Mansfield had let go completely and was ready to have a good time. Behind those closed doors, things were heating up. People indulged in vices, puffing on cigarettes and sipping cocktails like there was no tomorrow. The air was thick with laughter, secrets, and that unmistakable Hollywood magic. People whispered about clandestine affairs, hidden rendezvous, and wild antics that made this party legendary. The truth is, it played out just like any other wild Hollywood soiree, excess, indulgence, and stories to tell for years to come. Sophia Loren's 1957 party was a night to remember, or maybe one to forget, depending on how much you indulged. The Wild Garden of Allah party. The Garden of Allah was a grand stage for Hollywood's wildest rendezvous in the 1920s and 30s. This wasn't just a hotel, it was a swirling maelstrom of glamour, gin, and gossip. The things that happened in this hotel would shock anyone who wasn't part of Hollywood's elite. Imagine stepping through the hotel's grand entrance, the faint strains of jazz dancing in the air. The lobby, adorned with Art Deco splendor, was calm before the storm. Once you entered the heart of the hotel, the real revelry began. This was the place where the likes of Errol Flynn partied. Excessive drinking was practically a Garden of Allah ritual. The bartender, a maestro of mixology, concocted cocktails that could make Hemingway blush. As the night aged, so did inhibitions. The stars, whether Fitzgerald with his novels or Flynn with his swashbuckling charm, were no strangers to the allure of a well-filled glass. But it wasn't just the booze that flowed there. It was secrets and scandals, too. You'd find affairs blooming amidst the potted palms, trysts concealed behind heavy velvet curtains. Stars whispered sweet promises under dim chandeliers, knowing full well that the dawn would uncover their transgressions. Gossip flowed through the garden like the wine in their glasses. In 1930, a notorious party at the Garden had F. Scott Fitzgerald at the center of a fiery altercation. He reportedly threw a champagne glass at his wife Zelda during a heated argument. The party didn't just end in a whisper, it made headlines across the nation. These parties were wild. The Garden of Allah was a melting pot of vice and virtue, an incubator for scandal and salacious stories. Imagine, in the 1920s and 30s, the world was emerging from the constraints of prohibition, and Hollywood had a thirst to quench. If you'd attended, you'd be swept into a tempest of cocktails and carousing, where the laughter was raucous, the music was intoxicating, and the shadows concealed more than you could imagine. It was a place where stars shone brightest and fell hardest, where Hollywood's secrets and sins were laid bare under the California stars. These parties were a whirlwind of decadence and debauchery, where the only rule was to indulge in every whim. The excesses of the Marion Davies Beach House. On the sun-kissed shores of Santa Monica in the 1920s, that's where you'd find the exclusive world of Marion Davies Beach House bashes, where the newspaper magnate William Randolph Hearst and his mesmerizing mistress Marion Davies played host to extravagant gatherings that redefined the very essence of opulence. It was in this very house that a Hollywood star almost got shot. The scene was set against the backdrop of the Pacific Ocean, where golden sands met the blue horizon. The likes of Charlie Chaplin, the silent film maestro, and Greta Garbo, the enigmatic siren, were said to have partied there. However, chaos wasn't just a stranger, it was an unwelcome guest at these parties. The very extravagance that made these parties legendary also made them vulnerable to spiraling into mayhem. It wasn't unusual for the evening to end in a storm of shouting, shoving, and sometimes even broken glasses. For example, a notorious incident took place in 1924 when Hearst, known for his temper, allegedly pulled a gun on fellow guest Charlie Chaplin during an argument. It was the sort of drama that would give tabloids enough material to fuel their presses for weeks. If you were to attend such parties, you'd be a witness to history, a participant in the surreal world where excess was an art form. You'd see stars of the silver screen at the pinnacle of their fame, dressed in their finest, yet sometimes descending into the depths of chaos. You'd see the allure of Hollywood, but also the dark side of indulgence. These beach house bashes weren't just parties, they were a representation of the things that happened when Hollywood stars came together and decided to indulge in whatever they wanted to do. When the cameras were not present, these beach house bashes were a source of escape from the pressures of fame. These parties, as crazy as they seemed, were like a scene from Judy Garland's life. Giovanni Jackson, Daddy's Girl. For a good part of their lives, these legendary actresses have devoted themselves to the entertainment of the audience and left blood, sweat, and tears on their sets. Sadly, in the year 2024, some of them got snatched from the earth before their time.
It has been announced in the last few minutes that the famed actress, Dame Maggie Smith, has died.
Others lived a full life before passing away. But the one thing they all have in common is they left a huge mark on Earth and they will forever be remembered. Shannen Doherty. She was the ultimate 90s star, making waves as Brenda Walsh on Beverly Hills 90210, and her life had as much drama as her on-screen role, turning her into a tabloid sensation. However, in 2015, her story took a tough turn when she was diagnosed with breast cancer. After a brief remission, it came back in 2019, spreading to her brain. Despite her strength, this time, the fight was too much. On July 13, 2024, Shannen Doherty passed away at the age of 53, leaving behind her amazing work and a life well lived. Shelley Duvall. They call her the legend of horror. She had this captivating, almost otherworldly look that made her perfect for that. And on top of that, directors like Robert Altman couldn't get enough of her, and she played all kinds of roles, from a teen groupie in Nashville to the quirky Olive in Popeye. But it was her role in The Shining, facing off against Jack Nicholson, that turned her into a horror legend. Sadly, on July 11th, Shelley Duvall passed away from complications related to diabetes at the age of 75. Her impact on film is something that won't be forgotten anytime soon. Glynis Johns. She was a true star of both the stage and screen, with over 60 films and 30 plays under her belt. But most of us remember her as the feisty Mrs. Banks in Disney's Mary Poppins. Funny enough, she thought she'd landed the role of Poppins herself, so Walt Disney smoothed things over by giving her a standout moment with the unforgettable Sister Suffragette song. A decade later, her unique voice charmed Stephen Sondheim, who wrote Send in the Clowns just for her in the Broadway hit A Little Night Music, earning her a Tony Award. She also scored an Oscar nomination for The Sundowners, but on January 4, 2024, she passed away, though no cause of death was given. Cindy Morgan. You see, Morgan was a total 1980s icon. Her star shot up right from the start with her film debut as the gorgeous Lacey in the classic comedy Caddyshack. Just 2 years later, she scored another unforgettable role in Disney's Tron. She played Dr. Laura Baines in The Real World and Yori in The Game World, helping Jeff Bridges' character out of all kinds of digital trouble. Even though she kept acting in various roles throughout her career, including a stint on the soap opera Falcon Crest, people will always remember her for those two standout 80s hits. Her passing was reported on January 6, 2024, but she passed on December 30, 2023. So, to many of her fans, she passed in 2024. But again, the cause of her death wasn't shared. Gena Rowlands. These days, Gena Rowlands might be best known as the older version of Rachel McAdams' character in the beloved film The Notebook, but her story goes way back. She was a major force in Hollywood from the late 1960s through the 80s, earning respect and acclaim for her incredible talent. Her husband, John Cassavetes, played a huge role in her career, helping her become a muse for the American independent film movement. After making a name for herself on Broadway, she quickly transitioned to Hollywood in the late 50s. They collaborated on 10 films together, 2 of which earned her Oscar nominations: A Woman Under the Influence in 1974 and Gloria in 1980. Unfortunately, she passed away on August 14th after a battle with Alzheimer's. Catherine Crosby. She was an adored actress and the widow of the legendary Bing Crosby. Born in Texas in 1933, she launched her acting career as Catherine Grant in 1953, securing small roles in timeless films like Rear Window and Anatomy of a Murder. Her journey took a heartfelt twist when she met Bing while interviewing him for a newspaper column on the set of White Christmas. The two fell in love and married in 1957. But on September 20th, surrounded by her family, Catherine Crosby passed away at the age of 90 at her home in Hillsborough, California. Betty A. Bridges. She was a beloved actress known for her guest roles in iconic series like Good Times, Scrubs, and Hill Street Blues, but she passed away at the age of 83 on August 29th. She first captured attention with her unforgettable performance in the classic Good Times episode The Nude, where she starred alongside Carl Weathers in 1975. Over her impressive 40-year career, Betty shared the screen with big names like George Clooney, Lee Grant, and Red Fox in shows such as Dallas, The Bad News Bears, and of course Different Strokes, where she was also the mother of Todd Bridges. Later on, she established the Cane Bridge Academy, an acting school that helped nurture talents like Nia Long, Regina King, and Sana Lathan. Therefore, she will live on in the lives her academy will help change for the better. Rachel Lillis. She was the talented voice actress known for bringing to life beloved characters in anime, movies, and video games. Throughout her career, Rachel voiced characters in hit series like Your Lie in April, Berserk, Sonic X, and Mobile Suit Gundam Unicorn, as well as in animated favorites like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Winx Club. Sadly, she passed away on August 10th after a brave fight with cancer at the age of 46. Fans will remember her as the voice of Misty and Jessie in Pokémon, but her talent and creative contributions will be deeply missed. Mitzi McCall. The talented comedian and actress charmed audiences for decades with her unforgettable performances. She notably shared the stage with the Beatles on The Ed Sullivan Show and played the memorable role of a dry cleaner's wife on Seinfeld. Throughout her career, Mitzi appeared in various beloved shows, including Silk Stockings, The Twilight Zone, and Roseanne. Sadly, she passed away on August 8th at the age of 93. Connie Chiume. This remarkable South African actress sadly passed away on August 6th at the age of 72 after battling an illness. Starting as a teacher in Johannesburg, she first made waves in 1989 with the hit TV series Ikolum Edwa Yadwa. However, global recognition came when she played the role as Zawavari, a leader in the Black Panther films, but her career spanned decades before that. Patty Yasutake. The talented actress, celebrated for her roles as Alyssa Ogawa in Star Trek and Fumi Nakai on Beef, passed away on August 5th at the age of 70 after a battle with cancer. She began her career at East West Players and made her film debut in Ron Howard's Gung Ho in 1986, later appearing in its sitcom sequel. Yasutake was a familiar face on TV, with guest spots on shows like Murphy Brown and Picket Fences, but she truly left her mark as Nurse Alyssa Ogawa in Star Trek, The Next Generation and its subsequent films. Esta Terre-Blanche. The South African actress is best known for her role as Gillian Andruschi on All My Children. Born on January 7, 1973 in Rustenburg, South Africa, she first gained recognition after winning the Miss Teen South Africa title in 1991. She began her acting career in the popular drama Eagly, Place of Gold from 1992 to 1995 before moving to Los Angeles, where she landed the role of the spoiled Hungarian princess Gillian on All My Children. Her character initially stirred up trouble, but later became beloved for her romance with Ryan Lavery, played by Cameron Matheson. Sadly, she passed away on July 18th at the age of 51. Judy Belushi Pisano. She was an actress, producer, and widow of legendary comedian John Belushi. She first met John while they were both in high school in Wheaton, Illinois, and they married in 1973. As John's star soared through his work with the Second City comedy troupe and the debut cast of Saturday Night Live, Judy was working as a radio producer in New York City. She later appeared in uncredited roles in John's iconic films, Animal House and The Blues Brothers. Their marriage lasted until John's tragic overdose in 1982. Judy married Victor Pisano in 1990, but they divorced 2 decades later in 2010. She eventually passed away on the 5th of July at the age of 73. Keika Jabbar. A beloved cast member of the OWN reality show Love and Marriage, Huntsville. The series showcases the lives of 3 successful African-American couples as they work together to revitalize Huntsville, Alabama through their real estate venture, The Comeback Group. Keika joined the show last year alongside her cousin Letitia Scott, bringing her unique energy and perspective to the cast. She sadly passed away around July 2nd at the age of 42. The cause of death has not been publicly disclosed. Pat Haywood. Pat was a talented Scottish character actress who made her mark in Hollywood at 36 with her film debut as Olivia Hussey's caring nurse in Franco Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet, 1968. Her performance earned her a BAFTA nomination for Best Supporting Actress. Born in Gretna Green, Scotland on August 1, 1931, Haywood started her career in theater before transitioning to the screen. She became known for her roles in films like Goodbye, Mr. Chips, 1969, and Whoever Slew Auntie Roo, 1971, as well as TV series like Lucky Feller and the BBC's Wuthering Heights. Her final role reunited her with Zeffirelli in the 1993 film Sparrow. Haywood passed away on June 26 at the age of 92. Joan Benedict. She was a versatile actress known for her roles on Candid Camera and General Hospital. Born in Brooklyn on July 21, 1927, she began her performance career as a dancer at just 7. After training at the Rome Opera Ballet, she studied acting with legends Robert Louis and Stella Adler. Benedict became a familiar face on TV, working with Alan Funt on Candid Camera and appearing on The Steve Allen Show, as well as shows like The Incredible Hulk and Days of Our Lives. She was married twice to actor John Myers and later to Rod Steiger, and had a relationship with actor Jeremy Slate. She passed away on June 24th at age 96 due to complications from a stroke, leaving behind a daughter and 2 granddaughters. Pat Colbert. The actress best known for her role as Dora May on Dallas passed away on June 23rd at 77. Colbert made appearances on several popular 80s TV shows, including Benson and the Fall Guy, and played Bill Cosby's wife in the 1987 comedy Leonard Part 6. Her most memorable role came in Dallas, where she portrayed Dora May, the hostess at the Oil Barons Club from 1983 to 1991, a key setting for the Ewing family's dramas. Betty Ann Reese. Known for her roles in The Unholy Rollers and Sugar Hill, Betty Ann began her screen career with a 1966 episode of Shane and quickly landed roles in films like The Cool Ones and Banning. Reese became a familiar face on TV, appearing in shows such as Adam 12, Mannix, Mod Squad, Policewoman, and The Streets of San Francisco. She also had film roles in Deathmaster and The Photographer. Her final role was as Molly Margot in The Incredible Hulk in 1978. She passed away on June 3rd at 81. Janice Page. Janice was a star of Hollywood's golden age with a career that spanned from the big screen to Broadway. She was known for roles in musicals like Silk Stockings and The Pajama Game. Born in Tacoma, Washington, Page started singing in local shows before moving to Los Angeles, where she was discovered at the Hollywood Canteen. Her career flourished with films like Romance on the High Seas, her own sitcom It's Always Jan, and stage performances in classics like Mame and Guys and Dolls. She continued performing well into her 90s. However, she passed away on June 2nd at the age of 101. Elizabeth McCrae. Elizabeth Betsy McCrae, best known for playing Lou Ann Poovey, Gomer's girlfriend in Gomer Pyle, USMC, passed away on May 27th at 88. Her acting career spanned from 1958 to 1989, featuring roles in TV classics like I Dream of Jeannie, Bonanza, and Gunsmoke, along with soap operas including Days of Our Lives and General Hospital. On the big screen, she appeared as Meredith in Francis Ford Coppola's The Conversation. After her last role in Eddie and the Cruisers 2 in 1989, she worked as a drug and alcohol counselor in New York before returning to her roots in North Carolina with her late husband Charles. Susan Backlinie. She is best remembered as Chrissy, the first victim of the great white shark in Jaws, passed away on May 11th at 77. Born on September 1st, 1946, Backlinie had a range of film and TV roles throughout the 1970s and early 80s. She appeared in The Great Muppet Caper, 1981, and in Steven Spielberg's 1941-1979, where she humorously parodied her iconic Jaws scene. Her other credits included The Grizzly and the Treasure, A Stranger in My Forest, and Day of the Animals. Beyond acting, she also worked as an animal trainer and later transitioned to a career as a computer accountant after leaving Hollywood. Susan Buckner. Forever remembered as the bubbly cheerleader Patty Simcox from Grease, but before all of that, she was Miss Washington in 1971 and even competed in the Miss America pageant the next year. Her charisma led her to TV variety shows like The Dean Martin Show, The Mac Davis Show, Sonny and Cher, and The Brady Bunch Variety Hour. But it was Grease that catapulted her to fame, where her upbeat, quirky character left a lasting impression on audiences. She passed away on May 2nd at 72. Marla Adams. The daytime Emmy-winning actress, known for her long-running role as Dina Abbott Mergeron on The Young and the Restless, With a career spanning 37 years and over 200 episodes, Addams brought depth and drama to the beloved CBS soap opera. But her talents extended far beyond the halls of Y&R. Addams became a familiar face in the world of daytime TV, with notable roles on The Secret Storm, The Bold and the Beautiful, Days of Our Lives, Generations, and Capital. She passed away on April 25th at the age of 85. Meg Bennett. Meg was a talented actress and soap opera writer. Born on October 4, 1948, she began her career on stage in New York, starring in the off-Broadway musical Godspell and the Broadway version of Grease. After relocating to Los Angeles, Bennett became well known for her role as Julia Newman on The Young and the Restless, which she held for 6 years starting in 1980. She later transitioned to writing, winning a Daytime Emmy Award in 1995 for her work on General Hospital, where she also met her husband Robert Guza Jr. She passed away on April 11th at the age of 75 after battling cancer. Barbara Rush. She starred in the 1950s sci-fi classic It Came from Outer Space, passed on March 31st at 97 years old. As both an actress of stage and screen, Rush began her career in California playhouses after studying theater at the University of California, Santa Barbara. Her screen acting debut came in 1950's The Goldbergs, followed by her breakthrough role in the Oscar-winning sci-fi film When Worlds Collide. 2 years later, she won Most Promising Newcomer at the 1954 Golden Globes for her role in It Came from Outer Space. Rush continued to star in films and TV shows with credits including The Young Philadelphians, Robin and the Seven Hoods, and Batman. Jennifer Leake. The beloved actress known for her role as Lucille Ball's daughter in the 1968 film Yours, Mine and Ours, passed away on March 18th at the age of 76. Originally from Cardiff, Wales, Leake started her career with a screen credit in the TV series Wojciech in 1966. Her film career included notable roles in Eye of the Cat, The Photographer, The Incubus, and Agent on Ice, but she truly made her mark in television. Over the years, she portrayed Olive Springer Gordon Randolph on Another World, Blanche Bouvier on Guiding Light, and Gwen Sherman on The Young and the Restless. Leake was married to Tim Matheson from 1968 to 1971 and to James Doria from 1977 until her passing. Robin Bernard. The talented actress is best remembered for her role as aspiring singer Terry Brock on General Hospital in the 1980s, passed away on March 12th at the age of 64. Born on May 26, 1959 in Gladewater, Texas, she was the older sister of Wing star Crystal Bernard. Robin made her acting debut in the 1981 French thriller Diva and appeared in guest roles on several TV shows, including Simon & Simon, Whiz Kids, and The Facts of Life. Her breakout came in 1984 when she joined General Hospital, appearing in 145 episodes until 1990. After a sporadic acting career in the 90s, her final credited role was in the 2002 straight-to-video film Voices from the High School. Pamela Salem. She was a talented British actress celebrated for her roles in the James Bond and Doctor Who franchises, had a remarkable career that spanned decades. Born in India, she pursued her education at Heidelberg University in Germany and the Central School of Speech and Drama in London. Her acting journey began in repertory theatre in Chesterfield and York, paving the way for her future successes. Salem gained notable recognition for her portrayal of Taos in the classic Doctor Who adventure The Robots of Death in 1977. She returned to the Doctor Who universe 11 years later, playing Professor Rachel Jensen in Remembrance of the Daleks, and later reprised both roles in audio plays by Big Finish Productions. She passed away on February 21st at the age of 80. Anne Whitfield. The actress best known for playing Susan Waverly in White Christmas passed away at age 85 on February 15 at Valley Memorial Hospital in Yakima Wash, following an accident, according to a notice on the blog of Burien Wash. Born in Oxford, Mississippi in 1938, Whitfield moved to Hollywood with her mother as a child while her father was deployed in World War II. She quickly began working as an actor on nationally broadcast radio programs like The Phil Harris Alice Faye Show and One Man's Family. At age 15, Whitfield played Susan Waverly, the granddaughter of Major General Thomas Waverly, Dean Jagger, in the holiday classic White Christmas. Susan encourages her grandfather to host a performance by the film's main characters, played by Bing Crosby, Danny Kaye, Rosemary Clooney, and Vera Ellen, at his hotel, which ultimately yields a moving tribute to the general himself. Whitfield's obituary states that she watched White Christmas with her family in December 2023 in celebration of the film's 70th anniversary. Chita Rivera. The legendary Tony Award-winning actress and singer Chita Rivera passed away on January 30th at 91 after a brief illness. Best known for her groundbreaking role as Anita in West Side Story, she earned numerous accolades throughout her career, including Tony Awards for Kiss of the Spider-Woman and The Rink, leaving an indelible mark on Broadway. Joyce Randolph. Remember the sitcom Honeymooners? Well, Joyce was the last surviving member of the cast. Best known for her role as housewife Trixie Norton, she appeared in 39 episodes alongside stars like Audrey Meadows and Art Carney. Joyce Randolph passed away on January 13th at the age of 99 due to natural causes. Lynn Marta. Renowned for her guest roles on television and notable appearances in films like Footloose and 3 Men and a Little Lady, Lynn was a legend in her own right. She began her career in 1966 with an appearance on Gidget and became a featured player on the anthology series Love, American Style in 1969. Marta's film credits include a role in Clint Eastwood's Joe Kidd, and she had guest spots on popular shows such as Kojak, Charlie's Angels, and Designing Women, as well as a significant role in Days of Our Lives from 1983 to 2003. She passed away on January 11th at the age of 78 after battling cancer. Maggie Smith. At a young age, Maggie Smith, born on December 28, 1934, faced a rather formidable obstacle to becoming an actress: her grandmother, who advised Smith's mother not to let the girl go on stage. She said, "You can't let her, not with a face like that," Smith recounted to Sunday Morning in 2002, "and I think it made me so angry that I decided that I'd have a go." The roles that the two-time Oscar winner subsequently played on screen and on stage projected the same determination Smith had faced down her grandmother with all those years ago. And in perhaps her most famous role as the prickly, imperious Lady Violet Crawley in the TV series Downton Abbey, or perhaps it was Maggie, her role in Harry Potter franchise as she portrayed the character of Minerva McGonagall, the stern yet caring deputy headmistress of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. She passed away on 27 September 2024.
If you hang around them long enough, you'll get that way yourself.
Some of them frolicked with men for power. For others, they were just trysts of passion. But what did these women have in common? Well, it was a strong addiction to romance, affairs, and adventures with multiple people in the bedroom. Mae West. While most actresses in the early 20th century had to play coy and let studios dictate their image, Mae completely ignored the rulebook. From her wit to her wardrobe, she oozed confidence and sex appeal, becoming a symbol of female empowerment before it was even a thing. But what really set her apart was her notorious private life, which was just as provocative as her on-screen persona. Unlike some stars whose private escapades were hidden from the public, Mae practically invited the world into her boudoir. She was openly vocal about her love for men, lots of men, and made no secret of her sexual appetite. In fact, her entire career was built on pushing boundaries and embracing her desires. While Hollywood often punished women for enjoying their sexuality, Mae flipped the script and used it to build her brand. She wasn't just a nymphomaniac by rumor. She practically advertised it, and people couldn't get enough. Mae's relationships were the stuff of legend. She was linked to actors, boxers, and musicians, sometimes several at once, and she famously said, "Too much of a good thing can be wonderful." She surrounded herself with men she called her muscle boys, younger and fitter lovers who kept her company. Rumor had it that she kept a rotating lineup of these men in her home, and they weren't just there to lift weights. Even in her 60s, May was reportedly entertaining men in their 20s, proving she had no intention of slowing down. The public was fascinated, but the censors were horrified. May's suggestive dialogue and risque performances often landed her in trouble with authorities. Her 1926 Broadway play Sex was so scandalous that it got her arrested for corrupting the morals of youth. Did she care? Not one bit. She used the publicity to her advantage, and her fame only grew. Hollywood eventually tried to tone her down, but May refused. Even when the Hays Code, the strict censorship rules of the time, clamped down on her films, she found clever ways to sneak innuendos past the censors. Off-screen, though, her life was even harder to censor. Stories of her hosting private parties with plenty of booze, laughter, and lovers made headlines, and she loved every second of it. Clara Bow. The ultimate it girl of the 1920s was Hollywood's first major sex symbol. She had the charm, the beauty, and the carefree attitude that made her an instant star in silent films and early talkies. But while Clara captivated audiences with her bubbly, girl-next-door persona on screen, her personal life was a whole different story, wild, uninhibited, and scandalous enough to become Hollywood legend. Behind the scenes, Clara was anything but the wholesome image she portrayed in her movies. She reportedly had an insatiable appetite for romance and excitement, and her list of lovers was jaw-dropping. From directors to actors, even crew members, Clara was rumored to have had affairs with many of the men, and possibly some women she worked with. She wasn't shy about living life on her own terms, and her off-screen escapades soon became the talk of the town. The public started learning about Clara's private life through whispers and gossip columns. In those days, Hollywood tried to protect its stars' reputations. But Clara's behavior was hard to keep under wraps. Stories of her hosting raucous parties and entertaining multiple men at once spread like wildfire. It didn't help that some of her lovers couldn't keep their mouths shut, spilling juicy details that only fueled the rumors. One of the most infamous stories about Clara was her alleged affair with the entire University of Southern California football team. Whether it's true or just a Hollywood myth, it added to her reputation as someone who lived life unapologetically. People were shocked that such a bubbly, innocent-looking star could be so sexually free behind closed doors. Clara's private life became even more public thanks to a bitter legal battle involving her former assistant, Daisy DeVoe. Daisy accused Clara of immoral behavior and theft, and while most of the charges didn't stick, the trial aired some of Clara's dirty laundry. Details of her personal life, including her affairs and wild parties, were laid bare, turning her into a cautionary tale in the eyes of the press. Clara's reputation as a nymphomaniac overshadowed her acting career, and the press, always hungry for scandal, painted her as a loose woman who couldn't control her desires. For a woman in the 1920s, this was a career killer. The studio system didn't forgive women who didn't fit into their tidy boxes of virgin or wife, and Clara found herself pushed out of Hollywood despite her immense talent. Thelma Todd. She was known as Hollywood's beloved ice cream blonde, and she was as famous for her romantic escapades as she was for her comedic brilliance. Her career flourished with roles alongside legends like the Marx Brothers and Laurel and Hardy, but behind her smile was a scandalous life. A string of high-profile affairs kept her the focus of Hollywood gossip. Thelma had a way of captivating powerful men, particularly the studio executives who held the keys to Hollywood's golden gates. While their names were often kept under wraps, whispers of her intimate relationships with these influential figures painted a picture of a woman who knew how to leverage her charm. Some saw her as shrewd, others saw her as scandalous. Either way, Thelma's allure ensured her place in the inner circles of power. Her personal life took a darker turn when she became involved with Pat DiCicco, a Hollywood agent and producer infamous for his connections to the mob. Their relationship was turbulent, marked by his alleged violent streak. It didn't last long, but the damage was done. Pat was one of the first to bring a shadow of danger into Thelma's glittering life. Her rumored affair with Charlie Lucky Luciano darkened that shadow. He was one of the era's most feared gangsters. Luciano was said to be infatuated with Thelma, Some claim he tried to force her to allow illegal gambling at her glamorous cafe, the Sidewalk Cafe, in Pacific Palisades. Thelma, true to her fiery spirit, reportedly resisted, a decision that some speculate may have cost her dearly. Their relationship is unclear, but knowing Luciano added danger to Thelma's life. It also made it more intriguing. At the same time, Thelma was deeply entangled with Roland West, a married director. She had a long, passionate affair with him. West was not just her lover. He was her business partner, too. They co-owned the cafe where much of her drama unfolded. Their relationship was volatile. Frequent arguments were no secret to others. In 1935, Thelma was found dead in her car. This made whispers of West's involvement impossible to ignore. It added a chilling twist to their already complicated story. Barbara Payton. With her striking beauty and undeniable charm, she seemed destined for lasting stardom. But Barbara's life quickly spiraled into a whirlwind of scandal, fueled by her tumultuous love life and unapologetic indulgence in Hollywood excess. Barbara's most infamous romantic entanglement was a messy, headline-grabbing triangle involving two men who couldn't have been more different. Franchot Tone, a suave, established actor with a reputation for class, and Tom Neal, a hot-tempered B-movie tough guy. The two men became bitter rivals for Barbara's affections, and the feud turned violent, literally. In a notorious incident, Neal beat Tone so severely that the actor suffered broken bones and a concussion, leaving Hollywood stunned. The public spectacle of their love triangle, combined with the graphic nature of the fight, made Barbara a tabloid darling for all the wrong reasons. She became synonymous with scandal, her career and reputation taking a nosedive as her private life overshadowed her professional accomplishments. But the chaos didn't end there. Barbara's relationships were often marked by drama, instability, and a trail of broken hearts. Her love life, combined with her heavy drinking and reckless behavior, made her a favorite target for gossip columnists. She became a tragic figure, her potential eclipsed by her penchant for self-destruction. Kay Francis. Often called the woman with the naughty laugh, Kay was a true icon of pre-code Hollywood, a sultry, sophisticated star who knew how to command attention both on and off the screen. Her performances oozed charisma, but it was her adventurous personal life that solidified her as a fixture of Hollywood gossip circles. Kay wasn't just a leading lady, she was a trailblazer when it came to living on her own terms. Her romantic escapades were as bold and captivating as her film roles. Known for her bisexuality in an era when such openness was virtually unheard of, Kay had affairs with both men and women, making her love life as complex as it was scandalous. Her relationships included trysts with some of Hollywood's most dashing leading men, as well as whispers of liaisons with equally captivating women. Kay's charm was irresistible, and she knew how to use it to her advantage. Whether it was studio executives, co-stars, or socialites, she kept everyone guessing and talking. But Kay's allure wasn't just physical. It was her sense of daring that drew people in. She wasn't afraid to defy convention or to pursue what she wanted, no matter the cost. Her unapologetic attitude toward her personal life made her both an object of admiration and a target for scandal, but it also set her apart in an industry full of carefully curated facades. Sadly, her career eventually waned with the arrival of the production code and changing audience tastes. Lupe Velez. She is known for her electrifying performances and equally fiery personal life. Her beauty and talent earned her a spot among the biggest stars of the 1930s, but it was her explosive temperament and whirlwind romances that truly made her unforgettable. Lupe's love life was a spectacle in itself, passionate, volatile, and often playing out in the headlines. Her relationships were the stuff of tabloid dreams, marked by dramatic highs and fiery confrontations. She had a knack for attracting some of the most desirable men in Hollywood, including Gary Cooper, with whom she shared a tempestuous and highly publicized affair. Their love story was intense and unpredictable, full of passion and arguments, with Lupe's fiery temper reportedly leading to more than one dramatic fight. After Cooper, Lupe's list of suitors only grew more colorful. She was linked to a string of famous names, from Johnny Weissmuller, the Olympic swimmer turned Tarzan actor, to playboys, directors, and other Hollywood elites. Her relationships were often as dramatic as the roles she played, and she seemed to thrive on the chaos that surrounded her. Lupe's charm wasn't just in her beauty, it was her raw energy and unfiltered personality. She was unapologetically herself in a world that often demanded women conform to strict standards of decorum. Her outspokenness and fiery spirit set her apart, even as they fueled the scandals that followed her. Tragically, Lupe's life ended in one of Hollywood's most infamous stories. Her demise in 1944 was reportedly by suicide. Dolores Del Rio. She is none other than the Latina actress who lit up Hollywood with her stunning beauty, elegance, and undeniable talent. But let's be real, it wasn't just her on-screen brilliance that kept everyone talking. Dolores had a love life as glamorous and headline-worthy as her career. When it came to romance, Dolores didn't play small. She had rumored flings with some of Hollywood's biggest names, and let's just say she wasn't exactly shy about mingling with the elite. One of her most infamous affairs was with Orson Welles, the cinematic genius behind Citizen Kane. Their romance was fiery and passionate, the kind of thing that made gossip columnists lose their minds. Orson, who was married to Rita Hayworth at the time, was completely smitten with Dolores, and their affair became one of Hollywood's worst-kept secrets. But Orson wasn't the only big name in Dolores's little black book. She was also linked to Cedric Gibbons, the legendary art director who practically designed the look of old Hollywood. Rumors swirled about their affair while Gibbons was married to actress Dolores Del Rio. Yes, another Dolores. Hollywood can be confusing like that. And the list didn't stop there. Dolores was rumored to have had dalliances with other power players in the industry, cementing her reputation as one of Hollywood's most glamorous and intriguing stars. Ina Claire. She was a magnet for scandal, especially when it came to her love life. Known for her biting humor and irresistible charm, Ina had a reputation for keeping the most powerful and intriguing men of her time under her spell. One of her most talked-about affairs was with the enigmatic billionaire Howard Hughes. Hughes, who was as notorious for his eccentricity as he was for his string of high-profile relationships, was reportedly smitten with Ina. Their relationship, while short-lived, was full of intrigue, and rumors suggested that Ina's allure left even the famously aloof Hughes chasing after her. But Hughes was just one name on Ina's impressive list of conquests. She had a knack for attracting the rich, the powerful, and the charismatic. Business magnates, actors, and socialites alike fell for her undeniable charm. Ina moved through the circles of the elite with an effortless confidence, leaving behind whispers of affairs and broken hearts wherever she went. Her sharp wit, often considered her greatest weapon, made her an intoxicating mix of brains and beauty. Men couldn't resist her, and she knew exactly how to keep them wrapped around her finger. Yet, despite her many suitors, Ina never seemed to settle down for long, always keeping the upper hand and living life on her own terms. Pola Negri. The sultry Polish-born actress who became one of Hollywood's first international sex symbols lived a love life as dramatic and intoxicating as the roles she played. Known for her exotic looks and fiery demeanor, Pola had a knack for captivating men, and her string of high-profile affairs kept the gossip mills spinning. One of her most famous romances was with Charlie Chaplin. The two were an odd but magnetic pair, Chaplin, the comedic genius with a penchant for captivating women, and Pola, the tempestuous diva who thrived on passion and theatrics. Their affair was intense, volatile, and perfect fodder for Hollywood's tabloids, but as fiery as it began, it fizzled out just as quickly, leaving behind whispers of their passionate trysts. Pola didn't take long to move on. Enter Rudolph Valentino, the Latin lover and Hollywood's ultimate heartthrob. Their relationship was the epitome of a scandalous Hollywood romance, filled with public displays of affection and lavish gifts. When Valentino tragically died at the height of his career, Pola's dramatic grief at his funeral, including fainting spells and public outbursts, only cemented her reputation as a femme fatale and a woman who thrived on grand gestures and intense relationships. But Pola didn't stop there. Her love life was a revolving door of the rich, powerful, and famous. She jumped from one high-profile man to another, leaving a trail of broken hearts and tantalizing gossip in her wake. Whether it was studio executives, European aristocrats, or fellow actors, Pola's ability to enthrall and discard her lovers was legendary. Her unapologetic approach to romance made her a true femme fatale, both on and off the screen. Pola Negri didn't just star in dramatic stories. She lived them, turning her love life into a tale of passion, scandal, and unforgettable allure. Virginia Rappe. Virginia Rappe is sadly most remembered for the infamous Fatty Arbuckle scandal, but before her untimely and tragic end, she was carving out quite the reputation in silent-era Hollywood, not just for her beauty, but for her string of romantic entanglements. Virginia had a magnetic charm that made her a sought-after companion among Hollywood's rising stars and power players. Her love life was as much a part of her image as her work on screen. She was romantically involved with several influential men in the industry, adding to her allure as a silent-era starlet. One of her most notable relationships was with Henry Lehrman, a producer and director who had quite a reputation himself. Lehrman, known for his fiery temper and controlling nature, became deeply attached to Virginia. Their relationship was intense and dramatic, which seemed to mirror the turbulent Hollywood lifestyle they were both immersed in. Before Lehrman, Virginia had other rumored dalliances, though the specifics often got lost in the sensationalized chatter of early Hollywood. She was young, beautiful, and ambitious, and her connections with various men in the industry undoubtedly helped her navigate the murky waters of a male-dominated Hollywood. But Virginia wasn't just a woman seeking fame through romance. She had dreams and aspirations of her own, even if her beauty often overshadowed her talent. Her relationships, much like her career, were cut short by her tragic and controversial death in 1921, which became one of the first major scandals in Hollywood history. While the Fatty Arbuckle trial overshadowed her life, Virginia Rappe's brief but dazzling presence in the silent era remains a reminder of the glamour, ambition, and heartbreak that defined early Hollywood. Constance Bennett. She was the epitome of old Hollywood glamour and wasn't just known as the most beautiful of the Bennett sisters. She was also the most scandalous. With her sharp wit, undeniable charm, and a face made for the silver screen, Constance wasn't content to merely bask in the glow of her family's Hollywood royalty status. She carved her own path, leaving a trail of romantic drama and whispers behind her. One of her most talked-about affairs was with the dashing and much-married Gilbert Rowland. Rowland, a charismatic actor with a smoldering screen presence, was no stranger to Hollywood gossip columns. When he and Constance began their clandestine relationship, it sent tongues wagging across Tinseltown. The affair was bold, brazen, and emblematic of Constance's fearless attitude toward love and life. But Gilbert Rowland wasn't the only man caught in Constance's web of intrigue. Her love life was a carousel of influential and handsome men, from studio executives to fellow actors. She had a knack for attracting powerful suitors, and her relationships were often as dramatic as the roles she played on screen. Constance's romantic escapades were the stuff of Hollywood legend, and she embraced her reputation as a glamorous rebel. Whether it was her unapologetic attitude or her ability to dazzle men with her effortless charm, she lived life on her terms, leaving behind a legacy as one of Hollywood's most captivating and rebellious stars. Constance wasn't just a beauty. She was a force, navigating love and life in Hollywood with audacity and allure. Norma Talmadge. Her grace on screen won her legions of fans, but her off-screen escapades were what truly kept the gossip columns buzzing. Norma's charm wasn't confined to the silver screen. It seemed to spill over into her personal life, particularly when it came to married men. Rumors swirled that Norma had a knack for attracting powerful and unavailable men, the kind who could match her status in the industry. These weren't mere flings. They were passionate entanglements that often played out under the scrutinizing eye of the public. The scandal of it all added a certain edge to her image, blending her elegant persona with a touch of daring. Norma's relationships were the kind of stories that made Hollywood feel larger than life, affairs conducted in lavish mansions and behind the closed doors of exclusive parties. She was unapologetic in her pursuit of love, even if it occasionally landed her in the middle of a tabloid storm. To the public, she was a mix of grace and audacity, balancing her polished reputation with a taste for forbidden romance. Her romantic escapades may have ruffled a few feathers, but they only added to the legend of Norma Talmadge. She was more than just a silent film icon. She was a woman who lived as boldly as the characters she portrayed, unafraid of scandal and entirely unforgettable. Hedy Lamarr. Hedy married 6 times, proving she was as persistent in love as she was in her career and creative pursuits. Her first husband, Austrian munitions magnate Fritz Mandl, was as wealthy as he was controlling. Mandl reportedly tried to keep Hedy under lock and key, even forbidding her from acting. Hedy, never one to be stifled, famously escaped their gilded prison of a marriage, fleeing to Hollywood with dreams of stardom and perhaps a taste for the kind of freedom that Mandl had tried to deny her. Once in Hollywood, Hedy became a tabloid darling, not just for her stunning looks, but for her rumored affairs with powerful and prominent men. She was romantically linked to the likes of Spencer Tracy, Clark Gable, and even Howard Hughes, whose inventive mind may have sparked a connection with Hedy's own. The relationship between Hedy and Hughes wasn't just romantic, it was also intellectual. Hughes reportedly encouraged her to pursue her engineering ideas, and she, in turn, gave him advice on aerodynamics, a flirtation of both the heart and the mind if there ever was one.